All right, good evening, everyone. All right, come on, you can get better than that, St. Albans. Let's hear it. Good evening, St. Albans. All right, thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight. We're going to have a great time tonight. I'd like to introduce our moderator, Councilmember Danique Miller. And of course, your mayor, Bill de Blasio. Now, before we hear from the mayor and the council member and our special guest, I'd like to invite up Erilyn Innes to do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That's great. Thank you, Erilyn. So I'd like to recognize some of our co-sponsors this evening. District Leader Jackie Boyce with the Southern Queens Park Association. All right. The Alpha Phi Alpha Senior Center, led by Hilda Rogers, and who I don't think is here right now, but Elmer Blackburn is. Very good. The ZMI Foundation, Sharon Chambers, who I think is here with us tonight. Thank you, Sharon. Community Board 12, Adrian Adams and Yvonne Reddick. And Community Board 13, Brian Block and Mark McMillan. I'd also like to thank some special guests. District Leader Archie Spigner is here tonight. District Leader Leslie Spigner is here. I know I mentioned District Leader Elmer Blackburn. And with that, I'd like to start off with remarks from our elected guest. First up, your State Senator Leroy Comrie.
Good evening. I would just want to thank the mayor and his staff and for coming to Southeast Queens. I want to thank Councilmember Danique Miller for making it happen. And most of all, I want to thank all of you for taking time out on a rainy evening to be here. I look forward to a spirited discussion, and I'm going to get out the way. Amen.
And now, your Assembly Member, Alicia Hyman.
Thank you, Marco. Good evening, everyone. I will follow suit of the senator and make this very quick. Thank you all for coming. You are sitting in the 29th Assembly District also, and I look forward to the same spirited discussion. Thank you.
With that, I'd like to turn over to your moderator for this evening, Councilmember Danique Miller.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good evening, everyone. Wow, and welcome to the 27th. All right, so for those who are outside, this is exciting. This is the first time. Obviously, the mayor's been out here. I think you were a few blocks before, but no mayor prior to him has taken time to do these type of town halls, to come into the districts, the various districts throughout the city, and to have dialogue and engagement with the people of those communities. New York City is a beautiful mosaic of diverse districts, and certainly we have our concerns out here in Southeast Queens. So I'd like to thank the mayor for this opportunity to come out here and really engage our constituency. I'd like to thank his team, all these folks that you see here, commissioners, on the other side, and so many to even name. I see DOT and Park. and parks and sanitation and EDC and HRA, and I'm going to forget somebody, and one of my favorites back there, the new, what is the new title? And you're going to speak about the MWBE announcement that you made today, and and all the great people, and then certainly on this side, our local NYPD and who everyone here knows, and just the people that really make it happen. So I'm excited about that we'll have an opportunity to really engage the community. Those questions that you ask us, you can really ask them and really have an understanding of what the process really is and what we're doing to improve the quality of life here. But most of all, I'd like to thank all the members of the community that have taken time to be here, but our sponsors and not-for-profits and other folks. When you call us, these are all the people in the room that we call upon really to make it happen. So I'd like to thank everybody for coming out. This is a really exciting time that we're going ahead, and one of Southeast Queens' own just walked in, and that is Commissioner Jock Gia of the Department of Finance there, and who was right at home here, so I'm sure we have a lot of questions for him as well. But as we move forward, this is going to be exciting times. There's a lot of questions that have to be asked. There are a lot of genuine concerns about policies and procedures around the city as it pertains to Southeast Queens and the city of New York. There's a lot of questions about the equitable distribution, about the services. Those are delivered and those are received that we want to talk about here tonight. But most of all, we come to be informed and see what's going on in our city. And I am so thankful for the mayor for coming out and allowing us this opportunity. He's a very busy man. And these are busy times, but we are very grateful that he values Southeast Queens enough to be here tonight. We know that this is the place that this is the engine and the straw that stirs the drink right here in Southeast Queens. And I think the mayor recognizes that as well. There's a lot of exciting things going on, and he's going to be able to articulate those things along with him and his team, and so I'm excited. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, look who's in the front. That is the first, that is one of his first official duties, and I can say that, right? He actually married us 2 years ago, right? And still together, so well done, right? So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I give you Mayor Bill de Blasio. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. This is what's called a warm Southeast Queens welcome, and I thank you. I really appreciate it. I want to thank everyone for being here, first of all. I want to thank you. This is one of the examples of people taking ownership of their neighborhood and their community and doing something to make it better. I want to really thank you for that. There's a lot of cynicism in this world, but part of the answer to cynicism is people who step up and make things better, and everyone in this room is part of the solution because you care enough to be here tonight for this kind of meeting. So I want to thank you for that. There are a lot of leaders who I've had the pleasure to work with over many, many years. I want to do a special honorable mention to my friend Archie Spigner, who I've been working with for many years, all the way back to 1989. That's the first time I got a chance to work with Archie Spigner. And we thank you for all you've done, and all the other leaders, community leaders, obviously the elected officials. I want to thank the senator and the assemblywoman, both of whom have been crucial allies in Albany. I always say, and I want to say this about Senator Comrie, and I want to say this about Assemblywoman Heineman, that it is not easy to go to Albany, New York, and stand up for New York City. It's not easy. It is not a very fun environment to work in. But they do it, and they make a very big impact for this community and for the whole city. Let's give them a round of applause to thank them for all they do. And I want to talk about your councilman, and I consider him a friend. I consider him someone that is a very important partner of this administration. So you will forgive me if I call you Danique rather than councilman all the time. It's more natural for me. And I have to tell you, there are, all sorts of things that are presented about people in public life. I don't like the phrase politician. I should say that at the outset. I think that phrase, unfortunately, has come to have too many negative connotations. I like to believe that true public servants who get elected are elected officials, and that is a little more positive word today. And what I particularly appreciate is elected officials who have a conscience, who think about bigger things that we need to address in our society. Danique, even before he ran for office, as a labor leader, looked out for working people. And he was an activist. And I appreciate activists. I appreciate people who want to change the status quo and do something about it. As a council member, he has been one of the people that I've turned to regularly to get things done. And he has been very aggressive in telling us what this district needs. And you're going to hear a few highlights in a moment of some of the things that we have tried to deliver. But when Danique talks, remember the old E.F. Hutton ad, everyone? When Danique talks, I listen, because he is a real leader. I want to particularly thank him for what he did on behalf of our veterans and our seniors with the Hollis properties. Look, in the end, our veterans, and just look at this all over the country, our veterans who served, who stood up for us, who put themselves in harm's way, they've gotten a raw deal in too many cases. It should be a federal government responsibility to take all of it, take care of every piece of it, and make our veterans whole. No one in this room has that illusion that that's going to happen right away, certainly. So the city of New York has tried to step up. We've asked people to help us, help the people who served us. And I want to thank you, Danique, because you kept that commitment to our men and women who served us in uniform. Let's thank Danique for being there for them. Finally, I am available for weddings, and so I always check in with Danique because I'm proud of my, my handiwork. I want to make sure if I marry a couple, I want my batting average to be good, okay? So Danique, you got a good report tonight? Good report? Okay, so far it's working. 2 years, right? 2 years going strong, excellent. I just had to do that, had to check in. Now, the other thing I want to tell you about is the folks we have here, and it is fantastic to have so many people who have such a big impact on your lives and do such good work. I know so many of the people here from the city government very well. I've watched their work. These are very dedicated public servants. And so tonight you have an opportunity. You'll ask the questions and raise concerns, and we're going to speak to them during the formal town hall meeting. Afterwards, I want to invite you, because it is a very rare thing to have everybody who runs everything all in one room. If it's sanitation, if it's parks, if it's transportation, whatever, you've got the folks here who can actually make decisions and make an impact on the community all in one room. Take time to meet them, take time to raise your concerns. Now, I want you not to be shy about that, because as I like to say about them, they are such dedicated public servants. All they want to do is stay here all night and take your questions and concerns. They have nowhere else to go. They're all yours. Take all the time you need. They don't need to eat. They don't need to sleep. They just want to do a good job. So all of them are here tonight for you to connect with. I also want to say I had the pleasure, as we prepare for this meeting, to spend some time with the leaders of the NYPD for this community. I'm going to tell you about their achievements in a moment, but you join me, please, in thanking them for the amazing job that they are doing. And one last very important special acknowledgement before she leaves the room. Erilyn Innes. Let's give her one more round of applause to thank Erilyn for all she did with the Pledge of Allegiance. Now, I want to be quick and give you a couple of updates, and then we're going to open up to anything and everything you want to talk about. But let me make this a little topical. Show of hands, please. How many watched the presidential debate Monday evening? Show of hands, show of hands. All right, very, very civically engaged crowd. I thank you. This is not going to be a political statement that follows. I want to talk about policy. I want to talk about facts. So you may have seen two nominees for President of the United States debating the question of stop and frisk and talking about stop and frisk in New York City. And they were talking about what has happened during my mayoralty, and I kind of said, well, can I just come up for a minute and make this clear? Because it was this here, one version of the facts was not accurate. And what we heard was one person saying that stop and frisk had gone down and crime had gone up. So I'm here to tell everyone the truth. Stop and frisk has gone down, 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 and you know what else has gone down? Crime has gone down, murders have gone down, shootings have gone down. And tremendous credit to the men and women of the NYPD, and tremendous credit to community leaders, community residents who have helped the NYPD do their job. And what we have here is a success story in the making, where taking away a negative policy that was creating tensions between police and community, replacing it with a higher level of positive engagement, is not only proving to be the right path in terms of values and respect for individual rights, and a way to address some of the bad history that we've had, but it's also proving to be a better way to fight crime. And those are the facts. Now, I also want to tell you, there are some doomsayers out there who like to portray this city in a negative light. I'm very proud of New York City. I'm very proud of all we're achieving. I'm proud of what we've done to drive down crime, to create more jobs, to have the highest graduation rate for our schools ever. Over 70% of our kids are graduating, and we're going to go a lot farther. And there's always more work to do, but we're proving that things can change, and a lot of things that people thought were stuck actually can move. And I want to talk about some very, very quick things. Affordable housing, such a powerful concern all over the city. People worried about being priced out of the city they love, the neighborhood they love. Already since this administration began, we have put together the financing and the support to create over 50,000 affordable units, 50,000 affordable apartments for people all over New York City. 713 of those apartments are here in this council district. Real change that people, every single family who gets an affordable apartment who needs one, their life changes for years and years and decades. It changes everything in their life if they can afford their apartment. We're in the middle of an affordable housing plan that will create 200,000 affordable apartments. Some built new. Please, you can clap for that. Some built new, some subsidized with the families that are there so they can be there for the long term, but enough affordable housing for 500,000 people. We understand that we need to put together the whole equation. And one of the other central issues, if we're going to create economic fairness and inclusion, affordable housing, number one expense in people's lives, we have to address that. We also have to address the way people support themselves. More jobs, better jobs. We have the highest number of jobs in citywide terms, the highest number of jobs in the history of New York City, 4.3 million jobs in this city. One of the things that we have fought for and are achieving is to get those jobs to not just be in Manhattan, but for that job growth to be in all 5 boroughs. More and more of that is happening, including here in Queens, including in this district. And I want to thank our Small Business Services Department. They've done amazing work, and they have connected in this council district. They have connected 961 people to a job. In the year 2015, the last year we have numbers for, 961 people were connected to a job, got a job because of what Small Business Services is doing. I want to thank them for that extraordinary work. That is helping people change their lives in the right direction. I want to talk about what Danique referenced, the new initiative that we put forward today, earlier today. And under our Deputy Mayor, Richard Bury, and the new head of our MWBE office, Janelle Doris, we are going to be making a commitment, city contracts, to minority and women-owned businesses. We are committing that 30% of all city contracts will go to minority and women-owned businesses. And that, thank you so much, and that is a game changer. The city of New York has never been anywhere near that number in terms of commitment. We believe we can achieve that over the next 5 years. And we believe that is an act of fairness to create opportunity. And one of the things I said today, to keep money in our communities. When the city of New York contracts with an MWBE, it is not just an act of fairness and justice, it is also an act of economic self-sufficiency because the money stays in New York City by and large. It circulates and recycles within our own communities. People hire people from their own neighborhood. So why would we do business with a company in the suburbs or in another state when we could do business with a company right here in the 5 boroughs? That's what we believe in. A couple other things I want to talk about very quickly. I mentioned before what we're trying to do in terms of changing things that previously might have been stuck, and I mentioned the graduation rate as one of those big changes in our schools. Well, another thing I'm very, very proud of, we came into this administration saying we can't get our children's lives right, we can't get our school system right, we can't get education right if we don't really change early childhood education, if we don't start at the beginning. And it wasn't enough that some kids got pre-K and other ones didn't. Because pre-K, and anyone who's gone through this, if you have to go out and find a place that you can purchase pre-K from, if it's not available in a local school, it can cost you $10,000, it can cost you $15,000, and most families in this city don't have that kind of money. Or if they have to spend that kind of money, it comes with real sacrifices. We said this should be a right. This should be something for everyone because it's the only way we're going to give our children a real chance. I guarantee you when we started this initiative, there were many doubting Thomases. There were many people who said it was impossible to create a truly citywide pre-K system, full-day pre-K for free. Guess what happened this morning in New York City? 71,000 kids went to pre-K this morning in New York City. Every child who wants a pre-K seat now gets one for free. Anyone in this room, if you know of a 4-year-old who is not yet in pre-K, we have seats available right this minute. And it's easy to sign up for, and it's free. And what has it meant in this council district? This is an amazing statistic. 3 years ago, there were 393 full-day pre-K seats in your district, Anik. Now there are 1,600 full-day pre-K seats being filled in your district. That is real change. There's so many other things I could tell you about. We've put so much into after school in this district also. Huge increase in the number of kids in after school. We have many more after school programs in this district than we had just a few years ago. We have many more kids in them. Every child, by the way, every kid in middle school, please spread this word. Every New York City public school kid in 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade is now guaranteed for free an after-school seat. Every single one. And we are focused on taking that strong early start and then building on it. I have a plan to get all of our kids, every one of them, to reading level by 3rd grade. By 3rd grade, because if they can do that, everything else becomes possible for them. And we want every step along the way our kids to know that they are valued, that they can do anything, that they can reach the highest heights. So what are we doing? Computer Science for All will now be in every school. Over these next years, we're going to put computer science education into every school. We're going to put advanced placement courses, AP courses, into every high school. This was one of the great examples of the tale of two cities. It's time for every high school to have AP courses. What does it say to our kids? It says, you can make it, and we will support you. By the way, every middle school student will now have a college trip. They'll go to a New York City college and see at the middle school level that college is for them. We will take them, we'll show them it's for them, they belong. So those are some of the things that we're investing in our schools. I'll finish very quickly now, a couple of key points. When it comes to public safety, I mentioned before, the precincts are doing an amazing job. I just want you to hear this. It will, as we used to say back in the day, it will blow your mind. The 103 precinct, crime is down, overall crime down 5%. And the 103 is getting neighborhood coordinating officers. The neighborhood policing program begins Monday, October 3rd, this Monday in the 103. 105 precinct, overall crime is down 9.4%. All right, check this out. Murder is down 100% because they have had no murders. They had no shootings, 0 shootings in July and 0 shootings in August. 113 precinct, overall crime is down 14%. And at 113, one of the precincts that led the way on neighborhood policing and our NCO program, Neighborhood Coordination Officers program. And I want you to welcome 3 individuals who are here. And I want to just say, as I introduce these 3 officers, that this is the shape of things to come in this city. Neighborhood policing means officers get to know the community gets to know them. Officers work in a much smaller part of the neighborhood where they can actually get to know people, where they can actually be out on the street, walking the beat, developing relationships. Officers are routinely now giving community members their cell phone, their email, and saying, if you need help, just call me directly and I will work on the problem for you. It's a very different model that we think is going to draw police and community closer together, but also be more effective in fighting crime. I'm going to ask these 3 individuals to stand because they are on the vanguard of change and they're making a huge impact. Officer Thomas Lyons, Officer Thomas Krolik, and Sergeant Whitty Geritano. Come on out. Come on out. Glad I told you I had to accept your praise. Thank you. Thank you. Get to know them. Thank you very much. Thank you for all you do. We appreciate it. Give them another round of applause. Finally, and this is also related to safety and making sure that people do not put people in danger. There's a huge concern in this community and so many other communities about illegal vans. And I want you to know, if you share that concern, that we are in the process of making a very, very big change when it comes to addressing the illegal van problem. We used to be able to seize the vans. That right was taken away from us by a court. But seizing vans meant you took them temporarily, the van driver got them back, and sadly often continued the illegal actions. We are now about to start a new initiative called forfeiture, meaning if we find multiple offenses by an illegal van driver, we will take their van and they will not get it back. And the very last thing I want to say is I have heard for so many years the deepest concern from people in this neighborhood and surrounding neighborhoods about the question of flooding. And the feeling, which I think was very, very accurate, that the flooding issue affected Southeast Queens disproportionately, that it was not something that people did, it was a problem that was done to them, and there wasn't a sufficient response from the city of New York. We determined, and thank you, Danique, for your leadership in the last city budget in June that we would make a very, very powerful statement of the need to address this issue once for all. We put $1.6 billion into the budget to address flooding in Southeast Queens. And $120 million of that money is flowing right now, projects that are beginning right now. Grand total, $1.6 billion. We think this is going to be a huge difference maker for the community. And that's the kind of thing we need to do to improve people's lives. I want to thank everyone again for being here. And I am told we have another very special guest. Where is Reverend Flake? Reverend Flake, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate all you do for the community and all you did in your years as a public servant as well. We appreciate it deeply. With that, please give another round of applause. With that, we will turn it over to the council member, and off we will go.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess this is the portion where we get to ask questions of the mayor and myself. So we're going to be off and running. We're going to bounce around a little bit, and everyone will have an opportunity. Yeah, absolutely. There will be one question per person, and that question will get answered, and there will not be a follow-up. We are on time limit, and we want to do it expeditiously, and we want to get as much information out as possible. I do want to take a point of privilege. When we started talking about job creation here, and I took some heat from some of my more conservative members in the city council about the civil service roles growing by 25,000, right? And we believe here that how services get delivered, who delivers those services, how they get delivered are very important, right? And so 25 additional jobs mean more service for communities throughout the city. I also want to say that we have the highest number of public employees in the city of New York exists right here in Southeast Queens, right? Which also translates into the highest number of African-American home ownership in the country, right? So we're going to keep creating jobs here in Southeast Queens, whether private sector or public sector. We're going to make sure that that happens. So, time to raise hands. Okay, you know what? How about we start right here? Gentleman right here in the glasses.
Good evening, Mayor de Blasio, Councilman Donique Miller, and all elected officials and my community of Southeast Queens. My name is Patrick Evans. I'm the president of Springfield Garden Taxpayers and Citizens Association. I have a question with respect to the environment and as it JFK relate to our community. JFK Airport is growing and growing upon the Southeast Queens communities of Springfield Gardens, Brookville, Rosedale, St. Albans, Rochdale Village. Schools are suffering from the noise and pollution, not to mention the residents and churches. We need a reprieve from JFK's continued encroachment on Southeast Queens. Southeast Queens' need for the New York City Department of Environmental Protection to enforce noise and air quality standards in and about JFK. We need to protect Southeast Queens parks and open spaces from encroachment of JFK, and the Eastern Queens Alliance has been leading this effort. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I want to... There we are. Let's try this. Yep. There we go. The question of the airports, in general, you know, part of that is federal policy. But I also take to heart the fact that if people in the community are experiencing the noise problems and other problems, the city has to see what the maximum is that we can do, and also what's the maximum impact we can have on the federal side. So I want to be very straightforward. One of the things I pride myself on doing in town hall meetings is only telling you if I have an answer, I'll give it to you. If it's something we have to work on, I'll tell you that too. This is something we have to work on. Department of Transportation, Department of Environmental Protection. We need to figure out what we think we strategically can do, and also be honest with the community about what those limits are because of the federal regulatory dynamics. So what I will promise is I will come back with a vision, working with the councilman, and we can see what we can do. I don't know if DEP or DOT have anything to add, but I know this is something where we don't have an answer and we have to come up with one. Thank you.
Young lady.
It is my honor to be here this evening. Welcome to Jamaica, Mayor de Blasio.
Thank you.
And all the representatives here from each department. I come here tonight with a lot of passion for this community. My parents migrated here 47 years ago, and we own a home in Jamaica, Queens. Now, we've reached out as a community to all our elected officials in an effort to help us with the invasion of the hotels that are happening in our community. And I gotta tell you, it is so disturbing. They're building a 400-room hotel 2 doors from my mom's house. They're building another hotel 10-story high on the other corner. On the following corner on 95th Avenue, they're building another hotel. I've reached out to our elected officials. We have had meetings. I have 79 signatures here from a community meeting we had with Yvonne Reddick, representative from Senator Saunders' office, and also from Will's office, Reuben Will's office. I have 108 petitions here from my community begging for some help so we can stop the influx of these hotels from the foreign investors. They don't care about Jamaica. They don't care about us. They're coming in. I don't know what provisions have been made in regard to expanding sewage, what they're gonna do to contribute to our neighborhood. I am terrified what these people are the people that are gonna inhabit these hotels. I know it's not hospitality and tourism. So I wanna know, Mayor de Blasio, what are you gonna do to help me and my community address these issues and in an effort to stop the building of these hotels?
Thank you. I'll offer my thoughts, and Councilman, you may have some as well. I think on the larger issue of how we plan a community and make sure that the scale of things is right, et cetera, this is something that we want to do more changes to with the City Council. We think in a number of communities, whether it is in some cases a rezoning or whether it's something that requires a particular permit for the creation of a hotel, that we think there has to be kind of development that fits the community. This is our broad view. This is what we're doing with rezonings all over the city. So from my point of view, and I did not know of this particular growth of hotels in this area, I'll go back and we're certainly going to look at that. But from my point of view, we do have tools. We do have tools. If the City Council and if the City Planning Commission agree with us, there's ways that we can change what is allowable in a community. And I think in particular, the hotels, the question of whether a hotel makes a bigger impact on a community is a very valid one, and in some cases there should be a specific land use process to determine that. So I'll come back on that one too, but I can tell you we've already successfully started the process of rezoning some communities and changing the rules of engagement. We're happy to see if that's something we can do here.
Yes, definitely. In fact, we had a conversation, myself and Councilmember Wills today, with land use. We're going to be meeting with them about downzoning in this area. Obviously, some years back in the downtown Jamaica area, it was upzoned, and that is permissible in certain areas over there, but it is beginning to spread out into the districts. And it's not just the height, it's just the density and all the problems that come along with that, that there are obviously some areas that are commercially zoned, but at the end of a residential street. And so we have to take a look at that in terms of land use. And certainly we're looking at every tool in the toolbox to address that. And we've already begun that process.
You want to move it around?
Okay. Sir.
Good evening. Mayor, thank you for coming. All of the elected officials, thank you for coming. We really appreciate this, coming and seeing about our community. My name is Stephen Taylor. I am the current president of the Cambria Heights Civic Association. I believe in the body politic. I believe that all politics are local. I care about the potholes in my street, and I thank you, Senator Comrie, Assemblywoman Hyman, for everything you do in Albany, but I'm concerned about local issues tonight. My question, dealing with housing and inspections, how can we get the building department to live up to their mandate and come out and deal with the illegal conversions and the illegal uses that are happening in our community? I live in Cambria Heights, and I can tell you there is a problem. We need inspections, we need enforcement. We have called 311. We have We have fines issued, nothing is being done. The situation continues, and the character of our community is changing right before our eyes. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, yeah, no, I think we have something here from buildings, but let me first say, because I know the core of the answer, the illegal conversion issue is a big issue in a number of communities. And one of the things we decided we had to do was add a lot more buildings inspectors who could do something about it. And that was approved in the June budget. Those hirings are happening right now. It's going to give us a lot more capacity to send out inspectors and to issue fines or even more serious penalties if we have an illegal site, and particularly a dangerous illegal site. So what I can tell you in that case is we're going to have a lot more tools than we used to have. Literally in the course of the next few months, we're going to have a lot more tools and a lot more ability to respond to the complaints. And look, my view is if someone violates the law, we're going to give them a chance to correct it. If they don't, we can take some very serious measures, including taking their property in some cases. And that's something we're willing to do if we find a legal conversion that's endangering the rest of the community.
Hi, my name is Timothy James, and I'm representing Black Spectrum Theater. Thank you very much, Councilman. Thank you, Mayor, for coming out, and all of the elected officials and to the community. The question is, we need to have Roy Wilkins Park building, which includes Black Spectrum Theater, renovated. We need renovation here. That's one. And two, why is Black Spectrum's DYCD theater program at IS 192 servicing 140 students, but we're only compensated for 90? Thank you.
And I don't know, I don't have the facts on either one of those very specific situations. Do you have an answer, or we can get our experts in?
Well, yeah, on the first part, Mr. James, we are certainly advocating for the improvements here at the Black Spectrum, but this entire facility here. I think that one of the things that we want to do is highlight this 65 sprawling acres that we have here, and that it should be consistent with the parkland throughout the city of New York, right? But this is something that is controlled by us. Southern Queens Park Association is exactly that, right? And so we do that, but certainly myself, Senator Comrie, during his time here, have invested a lot of capital dollars in this facility here, and we're certainly hoping to grow, and we're certainly hoping that the mayor can show his appreciation as well, and that we can really continue to grow this. And really, to be honest, we wanted to be able to highlight this sprawling facility here too, so that the world can see what we have here and that we can grow it and improve upon it. But also on the other piece, we have to get to the particulars of that, and certainly we'll talk to finance, council finance about that as well. And if you send us the details, I'm sure Candace will get right on it. Okay. Sir.
Good evening, everybody. Without the titles, my name is Phil Craig. Tonight, you mentioned something very valuable to Southeast Queens regarding the flooding. However, that Southeast Queens for decades have been dealing with a two-part issue of water issues. And the other part to that is groundwater. So praise God. The groundwater is different from the flooding. The flooding will come after the rain, and then it will go. The groundwater has been permanently over 30 feet under our houses since DEP has stopped putting water into our drinking facilities since 2007, and it has risen 30 feet since then. What happens is that it has become a negative quality of life for many residents because mold has set into a lot of people's basements, which have therefore put people in critical conditions in dealing with bronchitis, bronchial trouble, asthmatic, and other issues. So it's become more of a health issue and a lot of residents in Southeast Queens. We have a committee, Bill Scarborough, Andrea Scarborough, Manny Kaufman, who works with Alicia Hyman, Assemblywoman Hyman at the moment, Reverend Flake. We have a committee which we were really hoping to speak to the administration, to at least see the proposals that have been put together by many of the people.
Thank you.
And we would like to do that.
No, look, thank you very much. You're absolutely right, and I am not a water engineer, but I can tell you I have been pretty well briefed on the dual challenge, not just the flooding problem, but the groundwater problem. The flooding problem is the one that we could address starting immediately. And again, we think $1.6 billion is going to make a very substantial impact. But the groundwater problem is very real and it's thorny, and it's our job to figure out a solution, which, as you know, has been evasive for many years. The DEP commissioners here, Vinny Sapienza, perhaps you can give an update on what we're doing to address the groundwater issue.
Thank you, Mayor. It is a challenging issue, and particularly with climate change, we've been seeing higher sea levels. That's increasing the groundwater even higher still. So we've been working with the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation to determine what methods there are to try to pull that groundwater level down. We've had some challenges with our neighbors in Nassau County who are using the aquifers, and but we are looking at a bunch of different alternatives, and hopefully we'll have a solution fairly soon.
And let me offer further. I'm glad you're raising it. This is why town hall meetings are very helpful, because they get ideas and concerns fresh in my mind and certainly in the commissioner's mind. This is something I want to find a solution for. I know it's thorny. I believe we're going to have to come to some kind of understanding with Nassau County, which, you know, has very different interests. But I think that's unfortunately one of the things that this means is State of New York, City of New York, and Nassau County are going to have to get on the same page. What I can commit to you is we will convene them all and try and see if we can get to that solution. I want to try and do that within the next year. Thank you.
Okay. So we're working our way around the room, and we're coming back this way as well. In the back.
Sure.
So we're going to work our way around the room so everybody knows that we're going to come back around.
We're going to be making multiple trips around the room.
Exactly.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for coming.
See how much walking.
My name is Kevin Williams. It's going to piggyback off what the lady over there said. In 1991, there was a movie called Strictly Business, and there was a line in there about who would ever want to live in Harlem? And then now you look at Harlem today, and it's the Harlem that is today. My question is, with all this development, what are you doing to ensure that Southeast Queens remains for the people that lived here? I'm second generation, well actually like fourth, fifth generation. Southeast Queens was here during the crack wars, was here when nobody wanted to come to Jamaica, but now we're building all Jamaica up. What's being done to ensure that we stay here and the G word does not come in, gentrification?
Mm-hmm. I think you're asking a very serious question and a very big question, but I'm not going to give you an answer that I think it doesn't dignify the importance of the question. Our job, I believe, is to create the most positive environment for all the people of the city. So, for example, to reduce crime everywhere, to increase the number of jobs, to improve our school system, et cetera. At the same time you do all those things, the city of New York becomes more and more attractive to people from the suburbs, from around the country, from around the world, which is why our population is growing. We're now at 8.55 million people. We're at the highest population we've ever had. Here's where it gets interesting. I think everyone in this room would say, yes, please make the streets safer, improve the schools, increase our property values, all these things. That's what we are trying very, very consistently to do. It does create, in a free market economy, it does create gentrification pressures in general. Now the question is, what tools we have? We do not, in this kind of economy, get to determine what happens on every piece of land, every piece of property. Obviously, people get to make their own decisions what to do with their property. We have zoning, for example, as a tool. We can decide in some areas that some places should not be allowed to build higher or should be even made lower. Other places, for example, where we want to see housing develop, where we want to see affordable housing develop, those could be higher. This is the kind of thing we can actually do. I have had many meetings where people, and understandably, I'm not saying this with anything but appreciation for why gentrification is a very double-edged sword, and people want to will it away. The challenge is you can't will away something that's also based on our other successes. But you can come up with a series of policies to limit the negative impact. That's the kind of thing we've tried to do, the creation of a lot of affordable housing. Again, the affordable housing plan is enough for 500,000 people. Things like keep protecting people against eviction. All the things that we can do to help people keep the housing they have, even if there's other development around. Now, again, if people in the community say, we want a different kind of zoning for our community, that's a conversation we want to have. We're always going to say, especially given the sheer cost of living in New York City and the constant pressure on the cost of housing everywhere, I'm going to say to anyone in any community, I want to create affordable housing wherever I can create it. This, to me, is how we keep New York City whole, how we keep our whole personality, our history, our values, is if we keep enough affordable housing being created so everyday people can still live here. So I'm going to look to do that everywhere. But we can, at the same time, figure out what's the best way to protect the quality of life in the community, the character of the community. That's what the balance we're trying to strike. We're only going to do that with the City Council. We're not going to ever have an edict that says this is what a community is going to look like. That is something we do with the City Council. So if the councilman says to me, I want to propose something that will change how we regulate development in this community, that's a conversation I'm always willing to have.
So let me try to tackle that as well. There's a lot of, Jamaica is incurring development, but I will say now, and we've had this conversation as a community, I think a few times, what we see now is an opportunity, right? So sometimes like we are not interested as a community in being that perpetual consumer, and which means that those who are building and we are renting, right? And the mayor mentioned the MWBE opportunities, and we have MWBE developers. In fact, the largest development that is going on in Jamaica now is an MWBE developer, right? Which creates economic wealth and sustainability in our community. And at the end of the day, we are not just renting, that we continue to own and manage that property. And we want that to be the model and the mantra for Jamaica and other places in the city. Where MWBEs are qualified, they should do that. I think that this is a community, as you articulated, that has sustained, the greater Jamaica area has sustained Jamaica during all the lean years, the Cambria Heights and the Springfield Gardens and the St. Albans. And we want to be able to flourish along with the downtown Jamaica area. And those are the things that can be done. In terms of the other place, what we're talking about, even the rentals, it is being challenged, I think, in the federal court, community board preference, but they all have community board preferences, everything that comes in there, that 50, 60% of all applicants are going to come from these community boards, right? So there are a lot of tools, and we'll continue to use other tools to ensure that we continue to build for us, by us.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilman. My name is Abdul Salam Musa. I'm a representative of the Southeast Queens Muslim Collective in the Islamic Circle of North America. As a Muslim here in South Jamaica, I'd like to know, how do you plan on building community across ethnic and cultural lines while making us all feel secure?
Excellent, excellent question. I appreciate it very, very much. This is one of the central goals and responsibilities of this entire administration. And I think everyone in this room has seen how people got divided over years, how unity was not fostered. We've seen so many things in our history that kept people apart from each other, including things done at the local level. A number of things. Sometimes it was leaders in the city who said divisive things and took divisive actions. Sometimes it was policies, and I'm very clear about this, about the way stop and frisk was used in the past, which I think had a corrosive impact on the relationship between police and community. because it so unfairly targeted young men of color, and the statistics prove the vast majority of whom had done nothing wrong. So that created a wedge, that created a distance. I think our vision is pretty straightforward. We believe, first of all, leaders have to speak about unity and value every community. It's not good enough to say there will be just an absence of something bad happening in a community. There has to be an uplifting and a valuing of each community. An example I imagine you're familiar with. We, in our school system, valued and honored Christian holidays rightfully. We valued and honored Jewish holidays rightfully. We ignored Muslim holidays. Same religious tradition, three great monotheistic religions all connected. In the last year, we made the decision to recognize the two Eid holidays as a statement of unity, that everyone needed to be respected. And that's something a city government can do. Neighborhood policing, where the relationships, the human relationships change. And there's a sense of value. If someone gets to know you humanly, gets to know your name, gets to visit your mosque or church or synagogue, goes to your store, goes to your civic association, it changes the entire relationship when it's not everyone's a number or everyone's, just an idea in someone's mind, but they're actually a human being they get to know on both sides. When communities get to know our officers as human beings, as public servants, changes things profoundly. So from my point of view, we are creating unity by, one, calling out some of the things from the past that were unequal, unfair, calling them by name. We talked about the MWB issue earlier. Let's face it, for 20 years, there was no meaningful way of uplifting minority and women-owned businesses. City of New York was not doing it, was not helping to share the pie in a fair manner. We want to show that we can actually get people opportunity. These are the kinds of things that I think create more unity. Because then everyone says, okay, first of all, we're being honest about some of our challenges, and second of all, we're actually seeing physical, tangible changes in people's lives. Very long road. I am not here to tell you we're going to create nirvana. It's going to be a series of steps. But I do believe it's amazing. You take away divisive rhetoric and divisive policies and start consistently replacing them with an inclusive message and inclusive policies, including economic inclusion, you can get to unity. You can get to unity.
And I'd just like to add that the City Council today introduced a resolution denouncing Islamophobia and affirming the contributions of the Islamic faith. Sir.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Councilman. The Department of Homeless Services has some data which I find very disturbing about the distribution of homeless shelters throughout the city. This particular community board, 12, is in the top 10 of all of the community boards throughout the city as far as the amount of homeless shelters that are in them. As a matter of fact, the top 10 community boards have more than the 49 other remaining community boards in terms of this distribution of homeless shelters. And there are actually 14 community boards that have no homeless shelters within their boundaries, predominantly more upscale, more white, more Asian communities. Now, the result of past policies as it relates to placement of these shelters seems to have a racial bias. And my question to you is, going forward, Mr. Mayor, will you assure us that the future placement of these centers will be more equitably distributed and those areas that have not received any will in fact get them?
Thank you. Thank you. I want to thank you. What's your first name? I'm sorry? Gary? Gary it is? Gary. Gary, thank you. Look, I'm going to try and be very straightforward with everyone. Very challenging issue that comes with a lot of emotion, and you presented it, I thought, in a very fair manner. I want to thank you for that, because this is the kind of conversation we have to have. We have to speak openly about what's going on. And I think your broad rendition of history had a lot of merit, so let me try and break down a few pieces. I will start with the most obvious thing I can say. There is a controversy in Maspeth, Queens. Now, I want to remind everyone in this room, you may not know this fact, it has not been well reported. In our shelter system citywide, there are 250 individuals who come from Maspeth, Queens. And we believe that saying to any community, especially one that has not had to shoulder the burden, one, we need everyone to participate in solving this problem, every kind of community. So the answer to that question is, will we continue to locate what we need to keep people whole, to give people a roof over their head, to take care of families in every kind of community, regardless of race, regardless of income, in every community in New York City? Yes. Yes. We will make that change. We are making that change. And if you need proof, you can tune in to the protests in Maspeth, Queens. And I don't think the tone of those protests has always been that appropriate. And I don't like that the protesters not only protested outside the house of our Commissioner Steve Banks, but threatened him and his family as well. I don't think that's appropriate. So we will pursue a fair share strategy in the sense of going into areas that have not had these kind of facilities before, and we will catch hell for it, and we will stand our ground and take it, because it is an act of fairness. Now, let me give you the rest of the equation, though, because it doesn't get pretty. I want to be very clear. No one's going to like my answer, but it will be the honest answer and the conversation this city has to have. We are trying with everything we know how to do to arrest the increase in the number of people in shelter. It is not a pretty picture, and there's a whole bad history of decisions that were made by the state and the city that contributed greatly to this huge increase in shelter population. If I could go back in time, we could have stopped some things that happened years ago. We would have many fewer people in shelter, but here we are. The other thing you need to know about today's homelessness, which is very different from what most of us knew of homelessness when it really began in like the 80s, 90s, today it's about economic reality. It's not as much. There's some people who have a mental health issue. There's some people who have a substance abuse issue. I'm not saying that's never the case, but more and more and more, this is what's happening in our city. Working people are ending up in shelter. People who have jobs right now are ending up in shelter. Children in school ending up in shelter. Families ending up in shelter. None of them have a mental health problem. None of them have a substance abuse problem. They have an economic problem. They can't afford the rent. That's what's happening in this city. And we've all seen it. The rents, the cost of housing in this city skyrocketed in a way I don't think any of us could have imagined ever. I appreciate the reference before to the movie Strictly Business. You know, how many neighborhoods can we say once upon a time people thought they would be in some kind of distress for decades to come, and now there's million-dollar homes all over them, right? And rents are astronomical. This happened all over the city. But what has not kept up with that in New York City or anywhere in America is wages, benefits, the things that would actually allow people to afford that housing. And this is what so much of the debate in this country has been about this year. How did we go from a country with a robust middle class that was growing, and wages were growing, and benefits were growing, and then in the last 20, 30 years, it went the other way, so people had less and less money to spend on housing that was getting more and more expensive. That's what's created the homeless crisis now. We have almost 60,000 people in shelter. It is an astounding figure, 60,000 people. What we have attempted to do, and Steve Banks has led the way, and I want to thank him for that, is to thank him for the work he's doing, please, because it's extraordinary, is we have been stopping people from being evicted, which is one of the big causes of people flowing into shelter, was that they were evicted, often illegally, by a landlord who wanted to raise the rent more. So we've been giving people lawyers for free, and I want to do a public service announcement. Anybody who knows of anyone who might be on the verge of eviction, Tell them to call 311 so we can get them a lawyer for free from the city to stop that eviction. That's part of the things that we're changing. We're providing rent subsidies to families that are about to lose their housing so they can stay in their housing rather than end up in shelter. By the way, for every taxpayer in the room, one of the best and smartest things we've ever done is give a family a rent subsidy to stay in housing. It costs many times more if they go into shelter. And it's less humane, it's less fair to the children, it's less fair to the family. So we're doing these things on a huge scale. And what it has meant practically is we've been able to slow the amount of increase in the shelter population, to some extent stabilize it, but not enough. Then, on top of that, and I'm sorry to take a while on this, but it's such a big issue, I'll just finish on this quickly. On top of that, we had shelters that were substandard, called clusters, that were substandard housing. We don't want to do that. We've had people in temporary hotels, hotel rooms. We don't want to do that. It's expensive. It's not fair to anyone involved. So that's why we've had to create new shelter capacity, because this is the reality we're dealing with. We also have a law, a state law, that makes very clear we are not allowed to ignore someone who needs housing. We can't turn them away. There's a right in this state to housing, which is a compassionate policy. So we're going to follow that law. We're going to follow that moral guidance that we are going to not see people end up on the street. The answer, the long-term answer, is some of the things I talked about earlier. We have the biggest affordable housing effort in the history of New York City. It is growing. That's going to help. We've committed to 15,000 what's called supportive apartments. They're apartments for folks who have been homeless and do, in those cases, have some of the other challenges of mental health and other challenges. That's a specialized program we're building quickly. We are going to continue to deepen our commitment to stopping evictions, to providing the rent subsidies, doing everything we've ever known to keep the shelter population from growing, and then chip away, start to turn it around. When we turn it around, we actually get to close shelters. That's over the horizon. That's not now. That's the long-term vision. It will be a real difficult battle. I want to be very straightforward. But I will finish by saying we also want to make sure the shelter system stops doing something which has never made sense, but for decades we've done it. If a family comes from my neighborhood in Brooklyn, they could end up in Manhattan, the Bronx, Queens, in shelter. And the child gets dislocated from their school, and the family is away from all their support system, their family, their church, everything. We are now starting the process of a rule, a vision, that anyone who ends up, God forbid, in shelter, it's in their own borough. So they're closer to home. They have more chance to get back on their feet. And we're looking at them, everyone, as a human being. And we all know the phrase in this room, there but for the grace of God go I. We see everyone as a human being. We want those human beings to be closer to their family, closer to their neighborhood, as part of getting back on their feet. And I think if we do that the right way, this will be less a fight that we hear in some neighborhoods about them, whoever them is, of keeping away the other, and more about people recognizing people are homeless now from every kind of community, every neighborhood, every zip code. Why don't we take care of our own and support them and help them back on their feet? That is our vision.
Sit down. Man.
Hi, my name is Rain Hudson. I want to thank my son's karate school for inviting me here. We're going to be leaving early. Kids got to go to bed. I appreciate that you did the universal K into the public schools. However, when you did that, you took a teacher's aide out of a classroom. So now in their classroom, there are 30 or 35 kids in each class. The classes are overcrowded. And as a single mother, I have to take my son out of my district, because I have 2 schools in my district in Rochdale Village that are failing. So I have to drive 30 minutes out my district to get into a good school. It's not fair. I should be able to take in Rochdale, they have 3 schools. All 3 are failing or overcrowded. That's not fair. So I appreciate the fact that you did that. However, when you did that, you took the teacher's aide out of the classroom. There's only 1 teacher in the classroom with over 30 students. And the teachers don't want to stay and help the kids that need help.
Okay, I really appreciate the question because obviously it's from the heart and you're experiencing it with your own two eyes. I'm not questioning you. I am saying I think there's some part of that I don't agree with and question of how we're handling our schools in general. And I don't know who is here who might be a pre-K expert. Okay, we got some real experts. The two of you, two deputy chancellors are here. But let me start and then have them jump in. The pre-K program, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm looking to my panel experts, 18 students is the standard in pre-K, okay? So I want to start with pre-K because I don't want anyone to get the misimpression that we think it's okay to have a huge number of kids in a pre-K classroom. The standard citywide is 18 students is the maximum in a pre-K classroom. Now, that should not come at the expense of any other grade level. So I'm very happy to have us, and the Deputy Chancellor can follow up with you directly, look into if something has happened in your school where they're saying this is because of pre-K. I have a problem with that. Not you. I have a problem with whoever said it to you because it's not an either or. We added a huge amount of new money for pre-K from the state and from the city. Right. So it should not be taking away, and I worry that someone is giving you bluntly a cheap excuse. So point one. Point two, the reason I talked about our education vision, which we call equity and excellence, is because I'm trying to be very real about the history of New York City. Well, you just said it, the schools that are bad, the schools you don't feel comfortable sending your kid to. How on earth did we create a school system of quote-unquote good schools and quote-unquote bad schools? That has been true for decades, decades. And on top of that, the standard we were trying to reach for our children was painfully low. I mentioned earlier third grade reading. And with all due respect to my predecessors of all different parties and backgrounds and philosophies, we never got even to 30% of our kids reading on grade level by third grade. And a lot of educators will tell you if a child is reading on grade level by third grade, lots of other things can happen, lots of very positive things can happen. If they're not, there's a good chance that they don't get to achieve their goals. This is the biggest city in the United States of America, the greatest country in the world, and we thought 30% of our kids being able to read was an acceptable standard. Think about how ridiculous and broken that was, and still is, and we have to overcome. So from my point of view, we started the initiative Equity and Excellence to say, if we are even acknowledging good school, bad school, and think that is normal, there's something wrong with us. That is not normal, that's not acceptable. And it is not enough. I got this question today when I was on the radio show, well, should we do something to help a few more students succeed? I said, I want to help everyone, but I'm not interested in just helping a few. I want to change the entire school system. It has to be that you can go into any neighborhood, and I'm a parent, I was a public school parent, you should be able to look at the school that's your local school and feel good about it, period. So what can we do as parents? Exactly, thank you, I appreciate that question. So, first of all, we need support for this initiative. Because what we aim to do, the things I said, pre-K for all, after school for all the middle school kids, all kids reading on grade level by third grade, something kids will not like, algebra for every child by 9th grade, because algebra is one of the big improvements in a child's academic life, computer science for all, college visits for all middle school kids, AP courses, college-level courses available in every single one of our high schools. This is a beginning. We also, as part of the teacher contract, we required all teachers to spend 40 minutes every single week speaking to parents, not just when there's a parent-teacher conference. There is dedicated time every week to have a meeting with a parent, a phone call with a parent, an email with a parent, and if that's not happening for you, that's not fair to you. So one of the things that every parent can do is demand the right. This was very well publicized, that it's once upon a time, and Charlene and I experienced this, 2 parent-teacher conferences a year. And everyone crowd together and try and see the teachers for 5 minutes each. We have replaced that. That still exists. We added more of those, but we also said we want the actual individual dialogue time between parent and teacher. If you're not getting it, go to your parent coordinator and demand it, because you have a right to it. If you believe this is the kind of direction that makes sense, tell your elected officials you want them to keep investing in the equity and excellence vision. If someone's telling you that we can't give you a good class for your child because of pre-K, something's wrong with that picture. And we're going to follow up with you directly right now because I'd like to go find out who that is and why they're saying that, okay? So, and we will help correct that. But the bigger answer is we're trying very rapidly to help make sure that you can feel good about your local school. There's a lot of choice, especially at the middle school and high school level. But I also think when it starts with elementary school, the first most local level, you have to feel good about it. We have to do a lot of change, so you do. So Phil, will you, before she has to leave, this is one of our deputy chancellors, will you find out who the offending school is and see what we can do about it? Thank you very much.
So before we go to the next question, I do recognize some of our local District 29 principals in the audience there. And I want to say that we don't have a single failing school in District 29. And that we are on the way up. So, thank you. Sir.
Thank you very much, Councilman Miller, for putting this together. It's fabulous. Thank you for coming, Mayor. You know, I've been listening tonight, and I've been an attorney in this community almost 30 years, practicing small firm, and I get a chance to talk to a lot of people. With regards to getting more minorities involved in doing business with the city of New York, because I firmly believe that a lot of the ills that we face as people, certainly in our community, is economic empowerment, economic opportunity. And you have a lot of good people who want to make it to that next level. And when it comes to the certification process, they seem to be running into a lot of potholes, which I've even seen myself. I've even helped people pro bono, and I'll tell you one case in particular. We had a gentleman who had all the necessary background. However, he wasn't able to establish it. You know, if you get certain documents now, particularly even if they're duplicates, if you lose them, such as birth certificates or driver's license, they don't even indicate what your race is, which is for good reason. I understand that. But when you have someone who looks pretty much like me, who can't establish to the city of New York he's African American, you got a problem. And I've run into that. And that's the bar that's getting us or keeping us from the next level. And I come from a family of entrepreneurs, and it's a shame that someone can't establish who they are, who is qualified to go to the next level. So two things I'm asking. Whether or not maybe the city, with all the certification that you like to do, and I believe you do like to do it, I heard you speak about it before, even in 100 Black Men, and we received that. Maybe you may want to find some sort of outreach to help those get certified, maybe find a qualified school or non-for-profit that's very deserving who are committed, and whether or not you're willing to look at the process and fill in those holes to prevent us to the next level.
I appreciate that question very, very much. And I'm always astounded. I appreciate public servants. And we have here many people live in this community, as Danique said, who serve the city of New York. I'm also, as you said, Danique, very proud of public servants, proud of the fact that we have a very strong public sector. At the same time, I'm not going to have any fear of contradiction. Bureaucracy, different from the people who are the public servants, bureaucracy, the culture of bureaucracy, is something we have to combat every single day. Because we take a good and noble thing, like certify someone to get an MWBE opportunity and create economic empowerment, and we make it too difficult, we make it too opaque, or it's not grassroots enough, so people who want access to it don't necessarily know people near City Hall where all the offices are. We're trying to change that. Now, I will say we've had success. We had a 25% increase in the number of MWBE certified firms since we came here. We're at the highest level ever. Today, we announced that we will double that number in just the next few years to 9,000 MWBE certified firms. And I want, in terms of how it actually happens and how community leaders can be a part of that, elected official, community leaders, nonprofits, I present to you our Small Business Services Commissioner, Greg Bishop, who is in charge of certification of MWBE firms.
So thank you very much for that question, and I'd like to get your information because we do need as much help as possible to meet that aggressive goal in terms of getting companies certified. Your specific issue in terms of how does one prove their ethnicity, we do know that sometimes individuals lose documentation. So in that particular case, that person could have signed an affidavit. We've made it very easy that if you do not have a document that says your race, we cannot go by visual, looking at a picture, because in certain groups, you're not able to tell what type of ethnicity they're part of, so we have to make it uniform. But if anyone is having problems getting a document, there is an affidavit that you could sign that just attests that you are who you are, and we will accept that. So I will talk to you specifically about the cases that you have, and I'll follow up with it. So as the mayor said, we have an ambitious goal in terms of getting individuals certified. So we do have an outreach team that will be happy to work with any organization that has connection to businesses. The city spends anywhere between $13 and $16 billion a year in just running the city. So we are looking for a lot of firms that have the capacity and that are willing and able to do business with the city. So if you are running an organization that has a membership of entrepreneurs who are looking to break into city contracting, we at the Department of Business Services will be able to, one, want to work with you to get those companies certified, but also to teach those companies how to do business with the city.
So I want to add to that. Thank you very much, Greg. I want to add to a stand here, please. I want this number to ring in everyone's ears. He just said $13 to $16 billion per year. That is not what we spend on our employees of the city. That is what we spend for goods and services that companies provide to us. Now, if we have a 30% goal that we will reach for minority and women-owned businesses, and you're talking about a universe of $13 to $16 billion every year, that is what they call real money, and that can make a real impact. What I'd like is for anyone who either wants to get certified in this room, and I'm going to do a little show of hands here. First of all, is there anyone in this room who owns a business that is not certified who wants to be certified? Raise your hand if you have a business and you want to be certified. Will you please, at the conclusion of this meeting, surround Greg Bishop? And he will start, and he has staff with him, but you're going to be the beacon, Greg, because you're nice and tall. Please, everyone who wants to be certified at the end of the meeting, come to Greg Bishop and his team and start that process tonight. Second, if you have a community organization, I want to ask, show of hands on this. If you have a community organization, a nonprofit, a house of worship, anything that wants to be a place that helps certify and get more people to become certified MWBs, raise your hand if you want to be one of the people that helps to get the word out and get more people connected. You should also, at the end of this meeting, come to Greg and his team because we want to follow up with you.
One last thing that I forgot to mention, we do offer one-on-one assistance to get you certified. So thank you very much for offering the pro bono service to businesses. But if you are, and when I get your cards, if you do want to get certified, we have a team that will sit down with you and go through all the documentation so you do not have to worry about actually doing it yourself.
So let me just add that Commissioner Bishop and his team was out last week. We were in Jamaica Performing Arts Center, and we had 200 local MWBEs out last week. And my office have done no less than 10, and we have constant outreach. And that's a big part of the Jamaica Now program and what's going on there to ensure that we have businesses that are going to be able to service those communities as well. Sir.
Mr. Mayor, since most black children in school are not learning, what can be done to get some good teachers in our districts? Maybe you can persuade Regent Sanford to come out of retirement and head a blue ribbon panel to investigate the problem and make a few suggestions on finding some solutions.
I know the question is a sincere one, but I'm going to just respectfully disagree on a couple of points. I think, first of all, the vast majority of our teachers are good teachers and committed teachers. But they did not get, in my opinion, did not get the kind of professional development and support they deserved for years. I want to remind you that for 20 years in this town, there were mayors who made a sport of attacking public school teachers. And that was not good for our school system. This is something I try to be respectful of my predecessors. But this was not healthy and good for the school system. That is a different question than is everybody who is a teacher a great teacher? No, as with any other profession. Are there some people who should not be in the teaching profession? That is a true thing too. Yeah, there are some people who should not be in it. Since we took office, we have supported the vast majority of teachers who are good teachers. We provide much more professional development and training, much more support, much more opportunity to follow a career ladder to greater success, and we identified 1,600 people who should not be in the profession, and we helped them out of the profession. So we've been able to do both. But that, I just want to be very clear, I think we're getting it better and better, more and more right about quality teachers. Second, I know many, many children, I've met many, many children of color, African American, Latino, all colors, all backgrounds, who are learning right now in our public schools. And it begins with pre-K. It begins with pre-K, and I'll tell you, I really want to make this point. We wondered why so many kids weren't succeeding, and we, the adults, were not giving them the early childhood education that would allow them to succeed. So we were creating a ridiculous equation that you couldn't win if you didn't unleash their intellectual energies at the point when it would have the biggest impact. When they're 4 years old, they can learn, just in terms of child development, they can learn in an extraordinary manner. But this school system didn't give them the opportunity to learn. Now that we are giving them the opportunity to learn, the results are astounding, and study after study shows it. Actually give kids a chance to be as good as they can be, and they will show it to you. They will show you how good they are.
Sir, been waving.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for coming out tonight. My name is Leroy Smith. My arm is getting kind of tired. Thank you for coming out tonight and addressing many of the problems that we have. I am a retired high school teacher for 26 long years. 26 long years. As I say, I've been around the block. I started at August Martin, Jamaica High School, Thomas Edison, East New York Vocational High School in Brooklyn, John Jay High School for 11 years at John Jay, Martin Luther King High School, when it first opened in 1975.
Okay, we got your resume. What is your question, sir?
My question is, I was a so-called shop teacher, or industrial art teacher. We no longer have industrial art and vocational subjects taught in our high schools. Please do all you can to bring those subjects back. Our kids, and home economics, our youngsters need that material. We don't have it now. Boys and girls need to learn industrial art education and the vocational subjects.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. I read you loud and clear. So we used to, when I was coming up, it was called vocational education. And now it's called, and I think it's a good thing, it's called career and technical education. And there's a reason. Because we all saw how vocational education was treated as the second class of education very wrongly. Very wrongly. And today, what we're trying to say is, career education, technical education, education gives you direct skills you can use in life, is equally valuable as the academic education, the college preparatory education. They all matter. They all help young people. So we are expanding career and technical education, but here's the difference. what we used to teach, which made a lot of sense in a more manufacturing-oriented economy, et cetera. Now what are we teaching in career and technical education? We are teaching computer science. We are teaching the kinds of things that help our young people go into the technology sector. Here is today's fun fact that you learned at the town hall meeting. In New York City today, there are 300,000 jobs in our technology sector. 300,000 jobs in a sector that did not exist in this city 20 years ago. And here's the other thing about the technology jobs. Overall, well-paid jobs. Not like some other, God bless the service industries and retail and everything else, where there's a lot of lower-paid jobs. In the technology field, there's overwhelmingly well-paid jobs. In film and television, overwhelmingly well-paid jobs. More and more in healthcare, which is expanding rapidly. There are more job opportunities, many of them higher paying. So we are reorienting all of our career and technical education programs to those kind of fields because we want our young people to get those skills and go into good-paying jobs. So it's alive and well, it's got a new name, it's got a new focus, and we're expanding it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You, sir, up front.
Good evening, John Logan, Cambridge Heights resident. Mr. Mayor.
Firefighter. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councilman.
For your service.
Thank you for your service as well. Mr. Mayor, please, could you speak about the body cam pilot program at depth, please? Will the program remain? Where are the funds from the program coming from? Mr. Mayor, I see you as a compassionate individual who understands the needs of the people in this community. I really, truly believe that. Personally, Mr. Mayor, do you feel that this program could help relieve some of the tensions across the city, please?
Thank you very much for the question. Can we thank him for being a New York City firefighter? We appreciate that. And I want to say a very, very tough week for the fire department. A very tough week, and we all stand in solidarity with you. And my condolences to you and all your brothers and sisters in the department. Yes, body cameras for our police force are coming. This was initiated under Commissioner Bratton, continuing under Commissioner O'Neill. Now here's the point. It's an excellent question because there's a nuance that people don't get to hear about. So you want a real explanation, I'm going to give it to you because everyone should hear it. When we settled the stop and frisk case, the Floyd case, there were a number of conditions. This was obviously a federal judge that was governing over this, and one of the conditions was there would be a federally appointed monitor. The body camera program is under that federal monitor, meaning the City of New York proposes a course of action, everything has to be approved. What was agreed upon is we are unquestionably moving into body cameras in a major way. We believe from what we've seen around the country, and this is something I spoke to Commissioner Bratton about a lot, that the opportunity to have body cameras creates mutual protection and accountability for everyone. Officers in a number of jurisdictions that started to use them, I'm going to be very straightforward, there was some initial concern and hesitation. And then when they started to live with the body camera, many officers started to like them because the vast majority of officers do things right. It was proof they did everything right. So it actually helped protect officers, some of whom were unjustly accused, or where it was gray what happened, it gave them the evidence. When something was done wrong, it gave the evidence too. And it was good all around, but it takes a lot of work to make it something that we can reach 36,000 officers with. And this is the scale reality here. There's no other police force in this country comes anywhere near the size of this one. So what we've done is we started a pilot in a number of precincts. So far, so good. The funding is now available to go to two levels. First, we're going to go to 1,000 cameras over the course of the next 12 months or so, 12 to 15 months. Then we have already the money in the budget to go up to 5,000 cameras. So that pathway is clear. The challenge, and it is real, there's technology issues, data storage issues, there's confidentiality issues, there's all sorts of things, there's policy issues we have to work through. Here's a real-life example. We do not want to tape a confrontation in, say, a domestic violence situation and then have that be accessible to the media. We do not want a woman who's been battered that we have to show that video publicly. Real life example. We have to figure out some rules and some standards and some restrictions to go with it. But do I think it will happen in this city soon? Yes, body cameras will be expanded in New York City starting in a big way next year. Do I think it's going to help create mutual respect, accountability, transparency? Yes. I think it's not as important as neighborhood policing. I think this is something that body cameras people can wrap their minds around because they're looking for solutions and it's physical, it's visible. Neighborhood policing is much more the core of change because in a sense we were torn apart. Community and police got torn apart. When we heal that, when we bring community and police back together, the power of that is inestimable. Every time the community understands what police officers are doing for them, it changes things. Every time police officers understand a community member, that's how we don't even have the incident you need to photograph in the first place. And finally, and this is something, again, both Commissioner Bratton and Commissioner O'Neill believed in passionately, this police force is not only retraining and then continuing to train every single member, treating them as the professionals they are. I always say this, we retrain lawyers all the time, we retrain doctors all the time, we retrain airline pilots all the time. You know who didn't get any retraining except for firearms or if they were in a specialized unit? Our police officers. They didn't get additional training year after year after year. Now they will. And Commissioner Bratton put a plan in place with First Deputy Commissioner Ben Tucker that we're going to have implicit bias training as part of it. And it's a very powerful concept, very powerful. And it's just a statement of our humanity. We're all human beings. We all came up in a family, in a culture. And unfortunately, because we're human beings, most people got some biases thrown into their upbringing and their training and the reality that came in. Now, thank God, in this day and age, we can name that. We can bring it out in the open. We can help people think about it. And I think what our officers do every single day, navigating the most complex city in the world, the most diverse city, navigating people with every conceivable challenge. You know what Chief Brown said in Dallas, that our officers are expected to be mental health experts and social workers and crime fighters. We can say out loud now what those biases that might have stood in the way are, and we can address them and help people think about them and help our officers deal with those complexities they face. That is going to be part of the training of the NYPD for every officer. I think that's going to be a huge difference maker as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That was very insightful. I do want to add that myself and members of the Black, Latino, and Asian Caucus met yesterday for about 3 hours with the new Commissioner O'Neill and Tucker and their team, and we went over a lot of the policies that were just discussed and make sure, and we will ensure that they will be enforced as well, and some of the things, and there are open invitations to the Academy for not just the council members, but leadership of the community to see what's going on firsthand and have real engagement. So if there's any adjustments or improvements that need to be made, they're definitely open to that as well. I also want to say, the mayor mentioned about the federal monitor. We have met with the leadership here in Southeast Queens, not just the elected officials, but many people in the room here have had the opportunity to meet with the monitor and the federal judge who was assisting the monitor and really have real in-depth conversation about what about that policy has impacted the community and what we could do differently. And so once the recommendation goes to the federal monitor, it is going to have some of the input of this community in that decision. So we're definitely keeping up on it. We're abreast of it. And not only that, but we are really at the forefront of addressing that issue. Ma'am.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor. My name is Charlene Smith. I am a lifetime Southeast Queens resident. And I'm also an avid tennis player, and I play tennis at Liberty Park. And right behind Liberty Park, there is a garbage dump. It's somewhere between 173rd and 176th Street. And I believe, I don't know what kind of garbage they process there, so that's one of my questions. But the smell interferes with our tennis game because when the wind blows, so does the smell.
You are expressing an eternal truth.
Now, my concern is not only for those of us who play tennis, but it is also for the children at PS 116, which is about 4 blocks from Liberty Avenue and on 173rd Street, and of course the people in that community. Also, what has started to happen now is the trucks line up on 180th Street beginning on Saturday night and Sunday. So when you come down the block at 6 a.m. going to church, the smell is now there as well. So I was just wondering what kind of garbage is being processed there, and is there any way that this facility could be moved to another location?
Thank you for the question. Now, I am going to be straightforward. I don't know the facts of this facility. So, council member, could you first, so our commissioners can understand what we're talking about here, describe it, and then we'll see who has the best answer.
So definitely, Commissioner, we've been working on that. Obviously, for the past 3 years, I was unaware that there are, well, before we got into the council, and we've had this conversation within the community, 4 communities within the city of New York are responsible for 80% of the garbage, right? We don't create it, we handle it. And Southeast Queens happens to be one. And so we've been trying to address this in the city council through legislation. Obviously, the administration has been doing so as well in creating new waste transfer stations throughout the city, equitably, mind you. So Willits Point has opened. That has reduced the capacity of the garbage. But one of the problems that I do have, and we have written a letter to the commissioner and to the comptroller, once they reduce the capacity, they were given another contract for composting and recycling. And as far as I'm concerned, garbage is garbage, right? So that's the short of it. We have legislation that's addressing that. Hopefully we'll vote it out really soon. There's also the franchising issue of the truck traffic that I think that the commissioner is going to be able to speak better to. But absolutely, that's a problem in the community. And we are certainly, it's a top priority for us with the environment. So,
Commissioner, you want to jump in? Commissioner Garcia of the Sanitation Department.
So yes, there are 3 putrescible transfer stations located. There are 2 putrescible and 3 C&D
What does
facilities.
putrescible mean to the rest of humanity that doesn't know
Putrescible means
that?
your regular garbage, stuff you put in your black bag, not stuff that you put in your recycling bin. That goes to a different type of facility. So anything you put in a black bag is putrescible garbage. So there's American and Royal, which are probably the ones that you're speaking about because those are where they're located. And there's another one that's for construction and demolition debris. So under the solid waste management plan, we are building or have completed, at least in Queens, the North Shore Marine Transfer Station. It has been open. We are taking most of the municipal waste from the whole half of eastern Queens to that facility now. But those are private transfer stations, so they are able, if they can get businesses to come to them, to still use them. We do address any issues with odor, as well as tracking of trucks, and we will fine them, and the fines get big very, very fast. They go from $2,500 to $5,000 to $10,000 very quickly if they are found to be in violation. So we are also working with the council on legislation to make it so that we can take some of the burden off this community, but transfer stations can only be located in manufacturing zones.
Okay, so now let's help answer the question here. So you're saying this is creating a problem for the community. You obviously understand we have to deal with the garbage all over the city, and we are trying, as the councilman said, to create more equitable rules. One thing you should talk about, obviously, is your vision for how to change how we do the routes and one thing or another. But in this immediate point, What can we do? If they're experiencing a problem and you say you have fines and other tools for enforcement, what can we do?
If you're experiencing a problem, you can reach out to us. We have inspectors who visit these facilities 7 days a week, 24/7, and we will issue fines and take very aggressive action if they are violating anything, whether it's their dust system, their odor system, their tracking, they're not doing the proper thing. I know that one of them was getting material. We had them move where they located it to try and mitigate those issues. So we have enforcement powers, and we are willing to aggressively deal with that. On a much more complicated issue on the private sector in terms of carding, we had a study done that showed that if we did geographic zones for collections from commercial establishments, not the city's waste, but from commercial establishments, we could reduce the vehicle miles traveled by 68%. We had a meeting today with many of the stakeholders, businesses, carders, many of the labor people in this industry, to start that process rolling. It's going to take a lot of time, but we think we can create a system that's good for commercial establishments, that's good for the carders, and that's better for communities overall.
Now, in a town hall meeting, you get an opportunity for an upgrade, okay? So instead of just somebody coming to visit and look for themselves, would you like the commissioner to come look for herself? Okay. Yes, okay.
I will give you my card, and let me
gonna-
just tell you, he really likes doing this.
I like doing this. We think it's really healthy for the leaders of these big agencies to go out to the neighborhood and see for themselves. Don't we think that's good? Yeah. Okay. So you're going to exchange information, and she will come visit you to see for herself. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Boyce.
We're going to be moving around. We're moving around. Thank you. We're here for a while. Don't worry. We're coming around.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, and to Councilman Ida Nick Miller. Thank you for choosing the Southern Queens Park Association to host this event tonight. It's been an exciting week working together with the New York City Parks Department to make sure that things happen the way they should. But let me get on to my question. I know you often get a question about these 18-wheeler tractor trailers that are parked throughout our community. I was just wondering, do you have an update on what's happening with them? I don't know that there are any fewer out there, but I see them all the time.
I appreciate that question, and I appreciate you for all you've done for this community. Thank you very, very much. So, the best antidote to the 18-wheeler parked where it should not be is the NYPD. So, who wants to talk, Chief, or one of you? And the DOT obviously is part of this. How are we going to address the 18-wheelers in the wrong places?
If you give us the location, you'll get an upgrade. I'll definitely come over and take a look at it, but absolutely, I'll come.
Holy cow, the borough chief himself. That is a big upgrade.
I'll definitely come over and take a look. But we've definitely stepped up our enforcement. I have my 3 precinct commanders that cover the district here. I can give you the numbers, but all 3 precincts have stepped up Division 0 summonses. We've done a tremendous amount of work. Can you give me the location? I can maybe give you some numbers, what we've done. Well, they're all over the district. Okay.
Even though you're very special, we're trying to keep it to 1 per person, but Chief will follow up with you personally on the locations at the end of this meeting. Thank you.
Okay. Ma'am.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Councilman Miller. My name is Emma Dawson. I live in Cambria Heights. I've lived there for over 20 years. I'm a homeowner. I'm concerned about my community. We fought very hard over the past 3 years. My civic leader had to leave, but we fought for rezoning to maintain the character of the community. And now we're faced with out-of-character, overdevelopment conversions of single-family homes. So my question is, what can be done to limit that, especially after we fought so hard for downzoning and we received it?
I'm a little confused. If you got the downzoning, because I don't know Danique, I'm going to need your help understanding.
I think again that was a question that was addressed earlier when we started talking about enforcement and buildings.
Oh, the illegal conversions. Okay.
Right. Buildings wasn't in the building at that moment. Buildings is in the building now. So when we talk about enforcement, what can be done, certainly where summonses have been issued, what is the next step? And so,
wait,
is that what we're saying?
Just
That's
clarify.
not my question. To clarify it, we have buildings that are being looked at putting together structurally in terms of combining more than one home, which will impact our community, we believe, in a negative manner.
Okay.
So it's overdevelopment in the sense that buildings, single-family homes may be combined if it's approved, but the thing is that the community over the years has fought really hard to receive the downgrade zoning, which we did receive.
Okay.
But now it's coming up for an exception, an exclusion. So we're concerned about that.
So there is a very specific, so that was a two-parter because those folks are in violation, and so we want to make sure that where they are currently, even aside from the BSA issue that is going on, that there are violations that have been issued, that those violations are being enforced to the maximum of the penalties.
So we're going to have Buildings Department come over to you at the end. Who's here from Buildings? Okay, at the end, please visit with her, and let's make sure the enforcement is happening on those properties. Thank you.
Okay. Right here.
Welcome back, Mr. Mayor,
Thank
to
you.
Worldsboro and to Jamaica Queens. I'm Rhonda Binda, the Executive Director of Jamaica Center BID. And Mr. Mayor, can you please help us repave and resurface Jamaica Avenue?
Bam.
I also want to thank you for the Muslim holiday. And now that we have Diwali stamp, I'm also curious, when will we have a Diwali holiday? Thank you.
Ah, very good. Okay. We've met many times. You're a very effective spokeswoman. On the repaving of Jamaica Avenue from DOT, do we have an update on that?
There she is.
Come on. I hope you have something to say on this because I'm not an expert on repaving.
So I have very good news. So the council member and I spoke earlier this week, and I did give him an update that we are going to be repaving as a first phase before December, 7 lane miles from Francis Lewis to 225th Street. So the council member was advocating very strongly. So before December, you'll see milling and paving. And then we're going to be doing 11 lane miles come the warmer months, and that's going to be from 168th Street to Francis Lewis Boulevard.
Winner. And I want to say we in this administration have made repaving a very big priority. Council's been tremendously allied with us in that, so we're putting a huge amount of money into repaving so we can actually reach a lot of places that were not reached before. On Diwali, in the spirit of honesty, no, I'm sorry, I cannot help you tonight because we struggled to add the additional holidays. We have added. The school calendar is stressed at this point. So we're holding at that. We certainly know there's a strong interest in Diwali. We're just not there yet. We will look at it in the future. Thank you. Wait, you need a microphone.
Good evening. My name is Loretta Humphrey, resident of Southeast Queens. I'm yielding my time to the gentleman.
All right.
Oh, we was getting to the gentleman.
That was like the U.S. Congress. She has yielded her time to the gentleman. Very nice.
Thanks for coming, Mayor, Councilman. I'm not from this district, but I'm a veteran. I work at St. Albans VA.
We're familiar.
I work at St. Albans VA. I'm a veteran. There's a serious issue happening at St. Albans. People are dying. There's lack of equipment. People are dying. Back in March, 2 veterans died from heart attacks.
At the VA hospital?
At the VA hospital, St. Albans. I have went to your office in reference to the situation already. There's no crash carts at St. Albans. St. Albans is considered a CLC, a community living center. All they have is defibrillators. Anybody that's familiar with medical situations know that a defibrillator is part of a crash cart. We talk about doing things for veterans, housing, community, different things. But we have a facility where 142 veterans live 24 hours a day. You have to call an EMT. The problem happened is that the EMT took an extended period of time getting there for the last death. How is it that we're supposed to be helping veterans that 1% of this American population has served in the military? And we can't have 2 crash carts that cost $2,400 at St. Albans. $24.99 is the price of the crash carts.
Thank you.
And you are in charge of EMT throughout the city. And I'm quite sure that maybe 1 EMT ambulance could be placed at the Veterans Hospital, 2 or 3 to transport people back and forth in cases of emergency. Because the language that the VA like to use is that this is a emergent care facility. It could be an emergent care facility all they wish to have it, but we have people living there 24 hours a day.
I got you. I appreciate very much the question. Look, I just want to say I think this is just classic with the larger reality that the country, again, talks a good game about serving veterans and our nation doesn't act on it. And I'm not going to go into the politics of that and why I think some people in Washington stood in the way of the funding, meaning the Congress stood in the way of the funding that the VA deserved, et cetera. But we will do everything we can at the local level to make up for that. What I want to do is have you meet with the head of our Veterans Services Department, former General Lori Sutton, Dr. Lori Sutton, and I'd like also to have the fire department, which runs EMS, come meet with you and see what we can do about that situation.
Sir.
Who are you pointing at?
The guy standing up there. Bring him the mic.
I just want to say for the record,
Bring him the mic.
wait. I just asked Danique, who are you pointing at? And he said, the guy standing up there. That is not helpful. That does not tell me much.
Yes.
Okay, the women can sit down, but still, the guy standing up is not descriptive enough. I'm going to demand more of our moderator.
Thank you. Right in the center.
Thank you, Councilman. Because actually, the question is related to you.
Just 1 second. I just want to help him as a moderator. That is blue shirt and glasses. Okay? You have to define the person.
He's a little tired.
That's right.
Good evening, Mayor. I'd just like to just address the issue that we haven't discussed tonight. And it's an issue that has negatively impacted this community, and that's the foreclosure crisis. This community has been basically raped through predatory lending, and a lot of these properties have now foreclosed on, and I'm in fear of the recycle of that. And I believe the councilman has proposed a way to have these properties foreclosed to stay in the communities and not be given to investors that who's going to prey upon us again. So, Mayor, I'd like to know what exactly is your commitment with respect to Councilman Miller's proposal?
I appreciate the question, and I'd like to hear Councilman Miller's proposal so I can speak to it.
Okay. So that wasn't rigged at all, right? But so let me just say that there is, gentleman is speaking about the distress mortgage buyback program. That is a program that the New York City Council, along with HPD and the mayor's office, has never been done anywhere in the country. For the first time, it's being done here. For the first time, the federal government, HUD, is allowing municipalities and not-for-profits to purchase distressed mortgages, which had generally been purchased by private equity and hedge funds, which obviously have caused the problem, right? And so, and our goal would be to purchase the homes and modify loans in which these hedge funds and banks was charged with doing but have not been doing. So it's been a long process, some time back and forth. The administration has been very helpful with Washington, D.C., and proud to say that in June we closed on the first 41 homes, right? So we do now all own distressed mortgages, and we are going to negotiate to keep those families in their homes. There are a number of other things that are going on. That we have about 35 homes in district here, in close to 90, 70 in Southeast Queens, but 35 homes right here in district that were formerly nature homes that are being restored by either Habitat for Humanity, Neighborhood Restore, and those homes are being restored and going to be sold back to the community as affordable units. Certainly, that is one part of the problem. The bigger problem is that since 2007, half of the mortgages that have been sold in Southeast Queens have been predatory mortgages, right? So what we saw in the past will manifest itself again as those predatory mortgages begin to mature, right? So what are we doing about that? And so we have a mortgage foreclosure crisis program that we do. The administration and the council administers, as we have our colleagues in state government. And by the way, we have our latest colleague to be Mr. Clyde Vannell sitting here. Democratic nominee for the Assembly. So there is a lot to be done, but one of the biggest impediments in assisting people is getting the word out, reaching that target audience, because there is a stigma attached to foreclosure that they don't tell their neighbors, they don't tell their family members, they don't go to church and tell their pastors. We get a call at the 11th hour when someone is knocking on the door. And there is so much help out there with New York City Center for Neighborhoods and so much investment that there is no reason for anyone to get to have their home foreclosed. And the impact on a community is not just that home, it's neighbors all the way around. So it's certainly something that we've invested a lot of energy in, and we're thankful to Queens Legal Services for all of their assistance.
So I want to answer the question now that I've heard everything you said, which includes all of the collaboration partnership we're already doing with the councilman through Department of Housing Preservation and Development. Yes, we agree with this model. Obviously, we've invested in this model. We want to keep expanding this model. And I want really that last piece to be heard loud and clear. There are so many areas now where the City of New York can help people. What I mentioned earlier, if someone's facing eviction, you can literally just call 311, and in many cases, we are going to be able to give you a lawyer who can defend you and protect your apartment for free. But equally, the point that Danique is making, if you are facing foreclosure, there are now so many resources and tools available. We have to make sure people get in touch with the councilman or get in touch with one of the agencies that's doing this work so we can help people avoid foreclosure.
Hi. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the pre-K initiative. My daughter actually thrived from it. I'm a transition coordinator with a private agency, not with the DOE. I advocate a lot for children with developmental disabilities. And with that, I sit in a lot of IEP meetings with parents, and I advocate on behalf of children with developmental disabilities. And many of the children that I deal with have excessive medical needs. And children with developmental disabilities are eligible for free, appropriate public education. And a lot of the times, I sit in these IEP meetings, and these administrators are denying the children the services that they need. And when they're denying these services, we have to go through court proceedings that end up getting serviced anyway. So it's actually being a waste of taxpayers' monies because they have the parents are going, they're suing the Board of Ed.
Yep, I know it well.
Yeah. So, but you also have these administrators who are, the parents go with a whole bunch of documentation proving that their children need it because the medical needs, the children can't go to public school.
So I'm going to jump in because I know this issue and I want to speak to it, and I appreciate it very, very much. Your description of the problem is exactly accurate. And it is something that we have taken very major steps to change, but we know there's more to do. And at the end, I want to make sure one of the deputy chancellors follows up with you directly because we want to know specific cases so we can follow up. But let me speak to the general point, very important. And I say this again as someone who very recently was a public school parent myself, and I've talked to, oh, I'm sorry. I very recently was a public school parent myself, and I've spoken to many, many parents of kids with special needs. There's no question it was a conflict-based system for years, and that was, I believe, to reduce costs. And I think it was a very cynical reality that instead of saying, okay, if a child has a set of needs, we're going to all work together to address them, doesn't mean everyone's going to agree on everything, but the idea is to get to yes. It was a system that created conflict, forced parents to have to go to court, created tremendous expense and challenge. We, 2 years ago, started the process of ending that reality. There's more work to do, but we said we want to get away from litigation. We want to try and find maximum chance for consensus between parents and DOEs on the front end. Further, in the last few months, working with legislators in Albany, we agreed that if a child's IEP doesn't change and their placement doesn't change, they should not have to go back through the whole process. Instead of every single year, we talked about doing it on a 3-year basis, where appropriate. Now, sometimes there are situations where IEP does change and the situation does change, or in a very good situation where a child doesn't need as much support because they're progressing. But there's plenty of situations where there's continuity. If there's continuity, we don't need to go back on the merry-go-round all over again and have the whole process. So these are big changes that are happening right now. I've talked to a number of parents who have experienced the change and it is helping them. But again, in the cases you know about, we need to know about, and one of the deputy chancellors will talk to you about it. Thank you.
In the middle with the very nice tie.
Guy in the purple shirt, which really would have defined who he was.
So, good
really
evening.
nice tie. I want to say he did it again. Really nice tie. Every man in the room thinks that's him.
Exactly.
Thank you. So I'm here tonight. My name is Noah Angeles. I'm a homeowner in Southeast Queens. I'm also a veteran, and I'm also a New York City principal at York Early College Academy. And at first, I want to applaud the mayor and the Department of Education's initiatives these past years. My school, we have a 97% graduation rate. Last year, all of our 8th grade students, including students with special needs, took the Algebra Regents as part of Algebra for All. 96% pass rate. 96% pass rate. And this year, through the Computer Science for All, we have software engineering in our 6th grade class, okay? So we have a lot of great things happening, but my question is, what are we doing to ensure that the facilities are ready for the 21st century? And I'm not talking about internet. I'm not talking about wireless. I'm talking about air conditioning, okay? I see you smiling, Mayor, because I'm justifying your initiatives, and my students are doing it. You know why? Because we're running Saturday programs. My kids are at school over the summer, and I see a lot of my parents here tonight, okay? And my students are doing it in 90, 95-degree heat. They're sweating, they're hot, but they're showing up. And I think it's their right to make sure that they have a comfortable location to learn. So I want to make sure that my kids have air conditioning in their classrooms.
All I can say is I am very glad that Hillary Clinton does not need to debate you. Okay? You're good. So, I was remembering, I heard this personally, this phrase from Bill Clinton. I had a meeting with him one day, and he said, that guy could talk a dog off a meat truck. So that's a compliment. Okay. Glass half full is the honest truth, and Elizabeth Rose will speak to the reality. Bad news first. Are we in a position to give every classroom in New York City air conditioning anytime soon? No, and I'm not going to lie to you. And I will say to you honestly, in the hierarchy of need, where, as you know, we have a huge number of overcrowded schools, We have neighborhoods that have, like Central Queens is a great example, huge exploding population in overcrowded buildings. We have an obligation to create decent school space for people. We have accessibility issues with the disabled. We have so many things we have to attend to. And we've put a lot more money into school facilities. But I got to be honest about trying to make sure we get the most important things, health and safety things, things in terms of basic access, things in terms of addressing overcrowding. The glass half full part, the positive part is, we do believe that the long-term vision has to be to get air conditioning into every school over time, and we are putting air conditioning into some schools, obviously every new school, but we're putting it into a lot of other older schools. So Elizabeth, I've defined the fact that we're not going to get the perfect solution here, but you can speak about the hopefully slow and steady progress we're making on this front.
So I really appreciate, Mr. Mayor, that you have given the first part, because that is very true. There are two different aspects of providing air conditioning to a school building. The first is to ensure that it has sufficient electrical capacity.
That's the issue. I will find a way to get the ACs.
Wait a minute, we're not doing individual bargaining here at this meeting. You're going to see her afterwards about your school. She's answering the bigger question.
Yeah. So the first is we need to make sure you have sufficient electrical capacity. And if that is the issue in your building, okay, so you seem to already know that, then it's a question of where in the capital priorities this falls. We do have a small amount of money in the capital plan for electrical upgrades related to air conditioning. They are targeted for schools that have very little current air conditioning and high levels of students eligible for free and reduced price lunch. So if you fall into that category, you may be in that class. We'll have to take a look.
So you should, because she's the person who decides with others which schools those are, you should spend some quality time with her at the end of this meeting.
And York Early Academy does a fantastic job, and they're 3 years running. They've been awarded, and Reso A is called. All right, we're going to get back over there, coming this way. Ma'am?
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Councilman, invited guests, and members of the community. My name is Andrea Ogle, and I am a member of the 18B assigned council panel in Queens Family Court. And I'm also here with the president of our panel, Ms. Sarah Tagari. On behalf of the panel and its members, I would like to thank you for supporting us and allowing us to provide quality legal services to the indigent community and families in the city of New York, particularly here in the most diverse county in the city of New York.
Now, I appreciate the praise, but we need to get to questions quickly because so many people have questions.
We would like to continue to represent the indigent community, and we would like to be an integral part of the process of continuing to do so. And my question to you is, how is it possible for you to include us in parts of the discussions that you have that as it relates to the members of this particular community?
Thank you. Thank you very much for the question. I always like to be honest about where I don't have as much expertise compared to some other areas, but Steve Banks does. Steve, where are you in this room? I thought you were here. There he is. Steve, can you speak to where we stand on this issue?
I will try. I'll do my best. First of all, I know that you do provide important representation. I think your question is focused on family court only and criminal court, am I right? Okay. So that's the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice Services. I'll give an upgrade, and we'll speak to you right afterwards to find out what your issues are. I think the mayor called me up because he's put a lot of funding into civil legal services to prevent evictions, but your particular issue relates to our criminal justice office, and I'll follow up with you.
Thank you. Now, I want you to recognize, everyone, if you help teach the commissioners the value of going out to the community, they start to upgrade themselves. So, Chief, thank you for starting a long way. Steve, you're following the tradition. This is good. We're going to get all the commissioners out to the community.
Okay. Sir, in the red tie.
It's good. We're making progress. We're making progress here.
Good evening, and like I always said, thank you for coming out, Mayor, and we thanks the moderator. I am Leroy Gadsden of the NAACP. Also, sidebar and protocol, also a candidate for state assembly, since that was mentioned earlier by other candidates. My question, though, on the issue is we talk about the illegal vans. Our community has been historically neglected by the city of New York when it comes to the public transportation needs. That's why the illegal vans are flourished, because we need more buses. I would hope and ask your administration to break the trend, do the need analysis of public transportation, and see that we need more buses in our community. If we stop those illegal vans, about 30% of our people will be late for work tomorrow. Secondly, when it comes to
that's your question.
still on illegal vans, though, still on illegal vans, we do not see any enforcement. And these illegal vans are allowed to just to ride and
No,
roam.
I got you. I'm cutting you off nobly because I know where you're going. I want to speak to it. Mira, where are you? And DOT, come forward, come forward. I want to say to my commissioners, I know it's late, but if you hear your subject matter, step forward because we need to use every minute we got here. Okay, so I think the point is a very fair one. So I'm going to do two parts very quickly. One, our commitment to enforcement on the illegals and the way we want to promote legal vans, and then to you on what we are looking at in terms of select bus or anything else that might affect Southeast Queens. Real quick, go.
Okay, on enforcement, as the mayor said.
I'm sorry, Mira Joshi is the head of the Taxi and Limousine Commission. Go ahead.
So we license the legal vans and not the illegal vans. On enforcement, we lost an important tool, as the mayor said in his introduction. We lost the ability to seize illegal vans. So we are using another tool that we have, which is to forfeit them, and that's to take them off the street permanently. So by the end of this year, we hope to be able to roll out our forfeiture in connection with NYPD, and when we catch repeat offenders, we take the vans permanently. So we hope that has an incredible impact in illegal activity in the neighborhood. Second, I'm making a plug for everybody here. Illegal vans exist because there's passengers. So part of this is education on what's legal and what's illegal and the dangers of getting into an illegal van with unvetted drivers, balding tires, bad brakes, no insurance. So please do not patronize them yourselves. That's a difficult ask. Please spread the word about the dangers of using illegal service. We're here on the enforcement, and that's the focus
Talk
of our
about the
attention.
legal, because another thing you said the other day at another meeting was you're trying to encourage the legal vans and get them branded and people be encouraged to use the ones that actually are right with the law.
We have branding and a uniform color that we want to use for all legal vans. They'll be white. They'll have a Commute NYC brand on them. The nice thing about these meetings is I got to sit with the SBS commissioner who's volunteered to help me look for money to get this done so that the van operators don't have to use their own money. But the benefit for the community is they can look at and easily see what's illegal vans versus what's an illegal van. It also helps NYPD with enforcement. If there is no passenger base for illegal vans, there will be no illegal vans.
Now to DOT.
Hi, good evening. I'm Nicole Garcia. I'm the Queensborough Commissioner for New York City DOT. So in relation to more buses, I work very closely with the MTA. My Commissioner, Polly Trottenberg, works very closely. We will certainly advocate for just more buses. On the SBS front,
Select bus service.
Yes, select bus service, which we established a route in November 2015 between Flushing and Jamaica. Preliminarily, the first 4 months of 2016, we saw a 4% increase in ridership. Northbound, we saw decreases in travel times by 6%, and then southbound 9%. We do have plans to come back and work with the council member and the community to pick another route for select bus service, one that will work for the community. We're looking at things like Hillside Avenue, Merrick Boulevard, but again, the route hasn't been selected, and that's a conversation that we want to have with
So this is a very important, thank you, very important response to your question, because you're right about the historic lack of investment. So again, one, we want to try and fix the legal-illegal van dynamic. Two, we think select bus service, which is something that can happen in real time. If you talk about building a new subway liner, that's nowadays, that's like 20 years. Select bus service you can put up in like a year, and it's obviously it's an express kind of bus. It saves a lot of time. It provides another option. So one route already working, we're going to go to another route working with the community, and that's something, if it keeps working, we'll keep investing in.
So, before we move forward, I want to take a point of privilege while we're on that and say that we also have a 5-bill commuter van reform package that will reform this unsafe and often illegal industry, put it back so it is consistent with Vision Zero and that we have real transportation alternatives. That being said, and Mr. Mayor mentioned that we don't have the time and the money for the infrastructure, but what we do have in the district is 6 Long Island Railroad stations, right? And we have a resolution which is called the Commuter Rail Equity Act, which would allow residents of Southeast Queens to ride or any resident of New York City, wherever a commuter rail stops in the city of New York, be it Long Island Railroad or Metro North, to ride for the same cost of a Metro card. Right? So, of course, the cost is negotiable, but what we ride on that, and Mr. Mayor, I said last year during your State of the Union, you said that you couldn't believe that people actually traveled an hour to work to get to work in the city. There is an hour and a half, 2-hour
I did
commute.
not say, wait a minute, misquote. Lots of people travel an hour getting to work in New York City. I think you made it a little more than that.
But here in Southeast Queens, we travel an hour and a half, 2 hours one way. And so it has great economic impact, but what you can't quantify is giving families back 5 to 10 hours a week back to their families and to their communities. And so we do have a freedom ticket, which allows you to ride on the weekends, but that is certainly something that we've had conversation. DOT has sent a letter endorsing the resolution, so we're certainly hoping that the administration would get behind that, and that is an absolute game changer. So, I'm sorry. Sir, in the white shirt.
Hello, everybody. My name is Tim McLilly. I'm on the Civic Association. I'm Lord, what happened? I just got all my words got mumbled up.
It's all good. It's all going to come back to you.
I'm also a American Legion, a veteran, and what I wanted to say is that we've got all these people standing around here, and in our community, we've got participatory budgeting going on right now that is being done out of Councilman Danique Miller's office. And we don't have the participation that we need in order to make the projects go along the way they should. And you get a chance, an opportunity for us to be able to vote on projects in our community to make things happen. And we don't get the participation, that we should. And I would like to challenge us right here to get involved. Outside there are flyers. Get involved with the process, because in order to change our community, we can't keep complaining and not participating. So my question is, Mayor, Danique Miller and the council puts up $1 million for projects. Are you willing to match that for projects?
A very clever ruse. You know, you are earnest, and I appreciate also your point that if people want government to perform for them, and someone like the councilman sets up community participatory budgeting where you literally get to vote on specific money coming to your district, you know, the folks I will listen to are the ones who go and vote in participatory budgeting who are actually taking advantage of the opportunity. But am I going to match everything in participatory budgeting? No, I'm not going to give you a satisfying answer, because that would create a whole new reality in the budget that we're not ready to commit to. We do believe in participatory budgeting. We have tried to help the council do more of it, but I'm not ready to commit to a one-to-one match, as good as the idea is. That is the honest truth. Nice try, though.
You got a question? Ma'am, in the red jacket.
Good evening. It's an honor, Councilman, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
My name is Nina Doster, and I'm the Community Education Council District 28 president. And one of my questions today is about education. I want to know, Mr. Mayor, are you willing to support expanding the school choice programs for parents who are living in low-income communities, and so they get the chance to send their children to great schools?
Well, again, when you say school choice, I want to hear your definition, but I also want to affirm what I said about equity and excellence, that I have a philosophical belief we have to fix schools across the board, but you define what you mean.
I mean school choice as in whether it's public, private, or charter, just so they have more school choice.
Okay, so I think I'm going to be very careful, because the minute you say that, it makes me wonder about different possible definitions. So let me speak to the bigger point. I understand, Lord knows I understand, if a parent feels that the school they have before them is not satisfactory for their child, there's nothing more important in their whole life than getting a school they feel good about. I do not believe that the correct way to solve the problem is to say, we're going to help you go away from your community for a good school. I don't think that's the right strategy. I think the right strategy is to fix the schools in place. And if you look at the amount of resources we're pouring into the schools to try and fix them right now, which is why we did pre-K for all, which is why we're doing after school. These things are right now. Computer science for all, it's happening right now. Teacher training right now. So my answer is I'm trying to fix the schools across the system. We do have a lot of choice at the middle school level. We do have a lot of choice at the high school level. But I do not want to create a dynamic where we give up on schools and say the only solution is for kids to leave their district and go elsewhere. That's not what I'm about.
You're standing, sir. Give him a mic.
Good evening. My name is Anthony Rivers. My name is Anthony Rivers. I'm the founder of People for the Neighborhood. And my question is for you, Mr. Mayor. You spoke very eloquently about Maspeth. You talked about how they've given you trouble. And it's true, everybody knows. But in the time that you spent debating whether or not you was going to open a shelter in Maspeth, 2 additional shelters have been opened in Community Board 12. We have the Days Inn, 1 block from York College, and we have the Howard Johnson on Springfield and Jamaica Avenue. We talk about equity. We talk about fairness. You spoke about all of that. My question to you is, are you willing to put forth legislation to be fair, to make sure that every community board has the same amount of shelters that Community Board 12 currently has? We hold 40% of all the shelters in the borough of Queens, and 2 more just opened up. What are we going to do about it? We can talk about it all day, but are you willing to put forth legislation in place for equitable and fair distribution? Because, as you quoted the Bible, we are all our brother's keepers.
Yes. And I know your question is from the heart, and I appreciate the facts that you raised, but again, a lot of times what I have to do in these meetings is not give people necessarily the answer they want, but what is the truth and what we're going to have to do. I have an obligation to house anyone who is on the verge of homelessness. I'm not going to allow people to go onto the streets. I'm just not. And I have to get them wherever I can find the opportunity. Now, I said before, we're going to go places that the city of New York has not gone before, and Maspeth's an example, and you're going to see plenty more. But I'm sorry. If I have to house someone, I've got to find every available option. My goal ultimately is to back that system down, make it smaller over time, get people into permanent housing, and not have to have this kind of concern. But what am I supposed to do? I'm being very straightforward with you. If I only have limited options of where I can get space to put people, and they need a place to live, and here's the other thing, you can disagree all you want, but I have to give people a place to live. Second, I want a system where people go to the same borough they come from. And that's not what we've had. And I think when we recognize there's a whole lot of folks who are homeless, I've got 60,000 people who don't have a home. A lot of them come from Queens. I want them as maximum extent possible to be able to live in Queens, the same with Staten Island, Bronx, Brooklyn, Manhattan. That's what I got.
Thank you. Ma'am in the pink.
Mayor, Councilman Dick, I'm Joan Handy, and more so, I'm Mike Handy's mom. Mike Handy had Dr. Sutton's job for 10 years.
Yes.
And I don't know if you knew me.
I knew him well. Good man.
Yes, he
A very good man.
I have pictures for you of the trucks. I live a half a block away. This truck actually washes the garbage trucks on our streets. It has to be against health department laws. Those are all pictures of the trucks.
Ma'am, just which street again? I'm sorry.
This is 180th Street.
180th and what? What's the corner?
That's Liberty and Brinkerhoff.
Who's got the which precinct?
Wait,
Step forward.
wait, I'm very, where are you? Are you the 103?
Yes, ma'am. I'm Inspector Kappelman, CO of
The
the
east, north side of Brinkerhoff is yours.
Correct.
And the south side is the 113. That's right. And wait. Let me say this, really. They have been ticketing him. What galls me is whoever owns this business does not have an office on 180th Street or anywhere else. I need to get the trucks off of there because now there are also new car trucks that carry the new cars. They leave them there for 2 days. I don't pay my taxes for that. My husband was in the Navy in World War II, and I have a family that represents yours, our rainbow coalitions. And we raised all our wonderful children right there. But what galls me is that they don't even have an office, and yet they're dumping their trucks there. Is there any way to raise a penalty on parking? Because on 180th, even though it's a commercial vehicle place, there were signs, the little black ones with the moon and the stars, no parking between certain hours.
Yeah, correct.
They actually had the temerity
DOT.
to take them down.
Let's let him answer. Thank you so much. They're going to be on it. They're going to be on it.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you very
much.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to take care of this.
Yeah. No, ma'am, thank you very much. We'll meet with you right after, and we'll address that complaint. Thank you.
DOT and
Wait,
fines.
does she deserve an upgrade? Okay. So, this tall, imposing gentleman is going to come to your street, will come directly to you, he'll make a time, he will come over and see this situation with you and figure out an action plan that the NYPD can implement. Thank you.
So
in person is always best.
Mr. Mayor, we do have DOT, and I know she has answers because we talked about raising fines, and the senator also have a solution over there.
Yes.
I just wanted to announce I meant to do it earlier, but in my budget, I was able to get a tractor-trailer tow truck in the budget assigned to NYPD for Queens South. So hopefully OMB can draw that money down quickly. But we did get a tractor-trailer tow truck to be assigned to Queens South because we don't have enough in this area. Thank you.
And just to echo what the council member said, DOT, our legal division, our intergovernmental division, we're all looking at how we can stop these bad actors from parking on residential streets. It is against the law, particularly overnight, and we want to make sure that we have the tools to support NYPD and get them out of there. So thank you.
Good. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Ma'am, in the black sweater. How we doing on time?
I'm finding out.
Ready? Oh, good evening. My name is Sandra Smith. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councilman. I'm from Montessori Progressive Learning Center, and we do have 4 classrooms of those pre-K for all students. We also have early learn, but since everyone's talking about upgrades, We have a building that's managed by DCAS Asset Management. We pay our rent dutifully every month, but we seriously need an upgrade. Our roof right now is
clarify,
leaking.
hold on. When you say we have a building, you mean a school building?
Yes, it's an early childhood center.
But it's a DCAS building?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
They come out every year and they do a survey and they take pictures of all our leaks, but nothing gets done.
Okay, hold on one second. I don't think we have anyone from DCAS here, do we? Okay. We will follow up with you directly on this. So I'm going to have Marco. Where's Marco? Okay, Marco, will you see her and make sure DCAS, this is our Community Affairs Commissioner Marco Carrion, who opened the meeting. So he will follow up personally with you, connect to DCAS. And Marco, will you personally ensure that we figure out how we can resolve this issue?
Very good. Thank you.
You got the right man there. That's now? Okay. It is 9:50 p.m. We've done a whole lot of democracy. So how about 3 more questions?
Bam. In the green. You guys stand up.
Good evening. Thank you, Councilman Danique Miller and Mayor de Blasio for coming. Thank you so much. My name is Lynette Townsley. I'm the program manager for Community Youth Care Services after school program at PS 176, as well as the NAACP, New York State Advisor,
Thank you.
and Jamaica Youth for
But let me hear your
Council.
question because I want to get to other people too.
What will you do as far as legislation and policy to change the relationships between the youth and the police? As we know, all lives will matter when Black lives matter.
Very well said. I appreciate that. I think the things we're trying to do from the beginning, I'll say it very quickly. I think one part is the educational piece. So that's everything from pre-K to after school, et cetera, which I think helps young people unto themselves. I think in terms of police-community relations, it was taking away the negative. I believe the unconstitutional use of stop and frisk was creating a very bad dynamic for our young people. It was taking away that negative. It was creating a positive neighborhood policing where those relationships develop. And that includes relationships with young people. One of the things I say is a very simple way of thinking about it. If a police officer is walking down the street and a young person is walking towards them, I want that police officer to be able to think about their own son, their own brother, their own nephew, and feel that kind of connection and understanding. That is done through training. That is done through removing biases, again, that are in all of us. It is done through neighborhood policing, so actual relationships develop. People start to call each other by name and know each other. All of those things contribute. I think, obviously, at the same time, everything else we have to do for young people. If we can get the whole equation about young people right, and I want to give the City Council tremendous credit in this, they pushed exceedingly hard in the last budget to increase the number of summer jobs for young people, the highest level it's ever been. And we're going to go farther because of the City Council. So think about it this way. Improving schools, much more after school, and again, it is guaranteed now for every middle school student, summer jobs greatly expanding, and then change the relationship that has existed with the police in a more positive, nurturing direction. One of the things you hear from officers involved in neighborhood policing, they start to actually develop relationships with young people. I've heard amazing stories about officers in this city collecting money from their fellow officers to get a teenager her prom dress who couldn't afford it, or playing basketball games where the cops and the teenagers play basketball against each other, like all sorts of things that change the dynamic. This is systemic. We have to do this every neighborhood the same way. But I think that constitutes a way forward for the city.
Ma'am, in the hat, in the lovely hat.
He was going back to his ways. Ma'am in the lovely hat. We're going to get the student over there. We won't lose the student over there.
There you go.
Okay,
Good
ma'am in
evening,
the
Mr.
lovely
Mayor.
hat.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Councilman Mr. Miller, and everyone here. A topic that we actually we may have touched on it, I'm not sure if we're late, immigration. Now, there's a huge amount of non-immigrants or illegal immigrants within the communities, and there's a huge panic going on, not knowing if a wall is going to be built from Jamaica to Mexico. What I'm asking is there a community or a program set up where people who are there's a lot of paranoia going on, Can they come to Councilman Miller's office, or is there a program or something set up to assist people who are panicking, who are rushing out trying to marry the first thing they see on the street just to stay in the country?
I appreciate that. Is what's called a real-world question. Thank you. You're right about the atmosphere of panic that's being created, and it's very cynical and it's very inappropriate. I'm not going to go into detail about who's doing it. Everyone knows. What we're trying to do in New York City is cut against that grain intensely. Everything from the ID NYC card, which sends a message to everyone they belong, to direct legal services to help families avoid deportation, to the ability to stop people from being treated fraudulently. Because one of the other things that panic is creating is that some fly-by-night folks are telling someone, oh, if you don't hire me, you're going to get deported, and all sorts of immigrants are being scammed by people. So our Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs has put together a whole host of things to help people get legal services, help them avoid being scammed. We can do a lot to help people. I know the Councilman's office can as well. So the message is, if someone has a need, to contact the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs, and we're going to try and get them the help they need.
Thank you so much. And wait a minute, there's a young lady in the back, and we want to make sure we get to the student.
My name is Anais Greaves. I'm currently a student in Campus Magnet, Humanities of the Arts. And tonight I came to see...
What grade are you? I'm sorry.
I'm in 11th grade.
Excellent.
My question is, every single day, not only for me, but other students, majority of us, we take the 77 to school, which barely comes. Meaning that sometimes this is a problem with our latenesses as missing school. The bus is just past us. In the winter, it's freezing. We got to wait for this bus, and it never comes. So I heard you guys over talking about a select bus. That would be one of the main choices, because the 77 is used for a lot of kids.
Okay, and what we can also do, because although we do not, let me tell people the fact, it doesn't get reported often enough. The buses are run by the MTA. The MTA is run by the state of New York, not the city of New York. I wish we had control over it, because we would run it differently. But we do have seats on the MTA board, including your boss, Polly Trottenberg. So in terms of the 77 bus and this problem, will you please make sure we follow up with the MTA and see what we can do, even though we don't control it, what we can do to push them to increase the service on the 77 bus, particularly during school hours.
You got a mic? Got it?
So, everyone, I would really love to thank Mayor de Blasio for this. Give him a great big round of applause. Unprecedented, hasn't happened in this community in the past. I hope that everyone had questions answered, but most importantly, I hope that everyone hangs around to take advantage of these commissioners. These are the people that do the work here. Make sure, if you have questions on sanitation, you talk to Commissioner Garcia. If you have questions on DOT and other